Namaskar, welcome to Kalam IAS. This is Vasudev Singh Bhati. Today we are going to discuss the Union Budget 24-25. Now the government has come up with the budget and it has become very important for the mains 24-25. But before starting or before actually reading the document, first we should identify that what is the importance of this document for our examination. Because the government does not prepare this budget for UPSC aspirants. UPSC aspirants have to use it to their advantage as per the demand of the examination. So before actually looking at the budget, we should always look at the PYQs, because that's how we identify how the question is framed around the themes of the budget or whatever is given in the budget. So the first PYQ in 2021, the question was asked, distinguish between capital budget and revenue budget. Now this is a static question, not from that year's budget per se, but a static question on the budget, that capital budget and revenue budget, explain the components of both these budgets asked in 2021. In 2019, the question was, the public expenditure management is a challenge to the government of India in the context of budget making during the post-liberalization period. So what are the issues that the government of India has faced in the post-liberalization period in the public expenditure management? That is with respect to revenue expenditure and capital expenditure, what are the challenges that the government is facing? Then in 2018, the question was asked directly from that year's budget, that comment on the important changes introduced in respect to the long-term capital gains tax and dividend distribution tax in the Union Budget 2018 and 19. So this year, the question was directly from the budget, and if you have read the budget, or in that year, if you had read the budget, then you could have easily done this question. Now, in 2017, the question was, one of the intended objectives of Union Budget 2017-18 is transform, energize, and clean India. Analyze the measures proposed in the budget to achieve these objectives. Now, this question is upon that this is the objective of this particular budget, and what are the measures that the government has taken to achieve these objectives. Again, you have to have understanding that what are the initiatives that the government has taken to transform India, energize India, and clean India. There will be three subparts in this question, and each subpart addressing to transform, energize, and clean India. In 2015, question was on gender budgeting. Women empowerment in India needs gender budgeting. What are the requirements and status of gender budgeting in Indian context? Then, what is the meaning of term tax expenditure? In 2013, question was asked on tax expenditure. Taking housing sector as an example, discuss how it influences budgetary policies of the government. So you see, the questions most of the time are static in nature, but when they are asked in current themes or from that year's particular budget, once it was asked about the what were the various initiatives that the government has taken for achieving the objectives of transform, energizing, and clean India, and once they ask a question upon a technical question upon what are the changes that the government has made in the capital gains tax. So these are the two questions which were directly from the budget. Rest all were static and not related to that particular year's budget. Now we move forward. So once we have understood the demand of why should we read budget, so we will read the budget to identify that what are the objectives of the government and what are the initiatives that the government has taken to achieve those objectives. That will be our focus. What are the major schemes that the government has introduced in this budget? What are the major initiatives that have been taken? Or also, what are the major changes that the government has made in the tax structure of the country in this particular budget? So these things will be important for this year's mains perspective. Now, first we will look at the components of the budget, because the UPSC has already asked question upon the revenue and capital budget. So budget is divided into two parts. One is receipt and other is expenditure. In the receipts, we have two parts again. One is revenue receipts and other is capital receipts. Now, what is the difference between revenue receipts and capital receipts? Revenue receipts is something which does not affect assets and liabilities. Capital receipts, whereas, affect assets and liabilities. Now, if you can remember this particular one line, that capital is something which is related to assets and liabilities. Revenue is something which is not related to assets and liabilities. Assets are something, long-term investment are assets. For example, my car, my house, my land, my jewelry, these are my assets. Liability means, loans that I have taken. So there are two types of receipts, revenue receipts and capital receipts. Now, in revenue receipts would be in terms of income. Whatever is the income of Government of India, it will be considered revenue receipts. Whereas whatever government receives, either by borrowings money from the market or recovering the loan that it had already advanced or by selling its assets, will be part of its capital receipts, because that is affecting the assets and liabilities of the government. Now take a simple example, that if someone tells you that go out in the market and earn some money. If your father or mother or someone some of your guardian tells you to go out in the market and earn money, go out in the world and earn money. Now there are two ways. There are a million ways, but we will take two examples. One person will go and get a job there, and will get a salary from that job, and will show to his or her father or mother that, see, I have earned money. So that is, you are earning by investing your time and investing your skills. Then you get a salary from it. That will be part of revenue receipts. Whereas the other person goes and will sell the jewelry of his mother. Now, if the other person goes to the market and sell jewelry of his mother and brings back money to his home, father will definitely going to scold that person. Father is not going to praise, or father or mother, whoever, is not going to praise the second person, because second person has essentially not earned any money. Second person has sold his assets and convert those assets into cash. Now that is essentially what capital receipts is. Now capital receipts are of two types. Now the second person could have also done other thing. Second person could have taken money on loan from bank and give that money to father. See, I have earned money. Now is the second person earning money? No, second person is not earning money, because it is affecting the assets and liabilities of that person. That means the person is taking loan from the market that he has to repay, or he's selling his assets, he's converting his assets into cash, so he's not earning any money. So capital receipts will include all those things which are not earning of the Government of India, whereas revenue receipts will include all those things which are earnings of the Government of India. Now earning are of two types of the Government of India. One is taxes and other is non-taxes. Taxes is very simple. GST, income tax, all the direct and indirect taxes, custom duty, etc. are part of the tax receipts of the Government of India. All the taxes form part of revenue receipts, because these are earnings of Government of India. Government does not have to sell anything. Government does not have to sell anything to earn that money. And government also do not have to repay that money. If government has charged you tax and government is earning tax, net earning on the tax income, then that money belongs to the parliament, and that money now the government does not have to repay back. Whereas non-tax income will include, for example, dividend, profit, interest on loan. For example, government has given loan to someone and earns interest on that loan, then that becomes part of revenue receipts, because that is not affecting assets and liabilities of the Government of India. Dividend is something, part of the profit that any company gives. For example, Government of India owns Coal India Limited. Coal India Limited will earn some profit and give part of profits to the Government of India. That is again earning of the Government of India. So every profit, dividend is non-tax revenue receipts. Now going into capital receipts, there are two types of capital receipts. One is debt. Debt creating capital receipts is something that the government has to repay to the people from which the government has taken the money. For example, loans and bonds are parts of debt creating capital receipts. Debt creating capital receipts. Similarly, there is non-debt creating capital receipts. Non-debt creating capital receipts would be that money which either the government is selling its assets or recovering the loan. So recovery of loan is part of non-debt creating capital receipts. If the government is recovering the loan, whatever the loan that the government has given to someone is an asset of the Government of India. Whatever loan, if I give loan to someone else, that becomes my asset, because that money is going to come back to me. Whatever money is going to come back to me, whatever has its worth, which can be converted into cash in future, will be an asset for me. So if I have given you loan, then that becomes part of my capital. And if I am recovering that loan from you, then that becomes part of my capital receipts. That is not an earning. Recovery of loan is not an earning, because that does not affect my total ownership, total wealth, whereas interest on loan is part of revenue. So interest on loan is always part of revenue, whereas the principal amount of loan is part of capital. So recovery of loan, disinvestment. What do you mean by disinvestment? Disinvestment means the government is selling part of its ownership to the people or private enterprises. If the government sells its shares in Coal India Limited to people, then that becomes part of non-debt creating capital receipts. Now, to simplify, receipts are of two types: revenue receipts and capital receipts. Revenue receipts is something which does not affect assets and liabilities. Capital receipts affect assets and liabilities. Revenue receipts is recurring in nature, that can be generated multiple times without affecting ownership of the government, whereas capital receipts cannot be generated multiple times. Once I have sold the jewelry, I cannot resell them. That jewelry is gone. Similarly, once the government has sold any company, that company has gone from the hands of the government of India. Now government cannot use those shares or those ownership again to earn more money, whereas I can generate profit every year. I can take taxes every year. So that is why revenue receipts are recurring in nature, whereas capital receipts are non-recurring in nature. Again, revenue receipts are of two types: tax creating and non-tax. So tax income is GST, income tax, that is very simple. Non-tax, whatever the government earns without selling its assets or without recovery of loan or taking loan from the market, then that becomes part of non-tax. That is earning of the government of India. Capital receipts is of two types: debt creating and non-debt creating. Debt creating is loans, bonds, etc., whereas non-debt creating is disinvestment, government sell its stake, or recovery of loan. Now we move forward to expenditure. Expenditure is again of two types: one is revenue, other is capital. The difference is again the same. Whatever affect assets and liabilities of the government of India will be part of capital, whereas whatever does not affect assets and liabilities will be part of revenue. Now, capital expenditure in simple terms will be those expenditure which create asset or reduce liability. For example, if I invest money in say shares or in land or gold, then that is a capital expenditure, because I am converting my money into an asset which is going to give return to me in future. If I have invested in land, then that land is going to give return in future. So I am investing my money, then that becomes part of my capital expenditure. Similarly, if government is creating infrastructure from its money, for example, government is building schools or hospitals or roads or power plants, then all those become part of capital expenditure. Whereas if the government is not creating assets or reducing liabilities, then that becomes part of revenue expenditure. For example, salary of employees. Now that money is gone. Government is not going to get back that money. Interest on loan. The government has taken a loan and paying interest on that. Then that is again part of revenue expenditure. Or subsidies provided by government. Subsidies are also part of revenue expenditure. Whereas capital expenditure will include investment on infrastructure or loans repaid or loans given to states. If government of India gives loan to the government of Maharashtra, then Maharashtra government has to repay that loan to the government of India. If the Maharashtra government has to repay that loan to the government of India, then that is an asset for government of India, and that is a capital expenditure by government of India. Similarly, loans repaid, if the government of India is repaying some of its loan, it's reducing the liabilities of government of India. Now, I have said it again and again, whatever affects assets and liabilities of government of India is part of capital budget. Whatever does not affect assets and liabilities is part of revenue budget. Now, the question was about revenue budget and capital budget. Revenue budget will include both revenue receipts as well as revenue expenditure. Capital budget will include both capital receipts as well as capital expenditure. Now, you know about the examples, you know what is the difference between revenue and capital. This question is now doable. Now we move forward to this year's budget. Budget 24-25. Again, we are going to look at this budget from perspective of UPSC examination, from perspective of mains 2024, that how this budget can be useful in writing answers in mains 2024. So this year's budget is said to be a roadmap for the pursuit of Viksit Bharat. Now, for the pursuit of Viksit Bharat, the government has identified four important sections of Indian society, which the government is going to prioritize, which the government is going to focus upon to ensure that the development can happen in India, and India can become Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. The government has called them four major castes. So the four major castes are: first is poor, second is women, Mahilaएं, third is youth, and fourth is farmers. Now, what is the use of this particular information from a UPSC perspective is that, first, this can be used, this Venn diagram can be used as value addition in any question on in GS3. Maybe the question is that not directly from the budget itself, the question can be difference between economic growth and economic development. So then you can write that development can happen as per the budget 23-24-25 if four major castes are focused upon. Or this can also be used in way forward, that these four sections should be focused upon to ensure that development in India is inclusive. So inclusive growth question also can be answered. There also this Venn diagram can be used for value addition. Other purpose of this particular Venn diagram or this particular a part of the budget is that how the question can be framed in UPSC. Now, how the question can be framed is, question can be asked, what are the major initiatives that have been taken by Government of India in the budget 24-25 for women development, or for youth development, or for growth of farmers, or growth of agriculture, or for reducing poverty. So we know these four sections have become important. Question can be framed either in social justice or in GS3 around these four sections. So we will read about these four sections whenever we are reading at the budget. Now, there are also four themes of the budget. There are four themes which have been identified in the budget, and again these also become important for us to have notes prepared on all these four themes. One is employment, second is skilling, third is MSME, and fourth is middle class. So again, question can be framed: what are the government initiatives for skilling people in India? Or skilling is very important. Now, if there is a question on employment, almost every other alternate year there is a question on employment, and if there is a question on employment this year, you can use the initiatives that have been taken by Government of India in this year's budget to to add value to your answer, to show it as way forward, or in the conclusion itself that the government has taken these initiatives for skilling people or increasing employment of the people, and this is a step in right direction. So this is how you actually use the budget. We do not have to memorize the complete budget. We just have to look for those sections which can be which can add value to our answer, or around which a question can be framed by UPSC. So we have seen the PYQs. We know how UPSC will frame questions around these topics. Now the UPSC can ask, what are the issues that India is facing in skilling, or what are the government initiatives that have been taken for skilling people. Now all the government initiatives are given here in this year's budget. So this year's budget will be handy in answering such questions. And again, the budget has two parts, part A and part B. Part B deals with fiscal policy, specifically the taxes and revenues of the Government of India. And part A deals with different industries or different sections of society, different themes of the country. These are focused in the part A. Now again, part A is subdivided into 9 major parts, and these 9 major parts are called budget priorities. And these 9 major parts are productivity and resilience in agriculture, employment and skilling, inclusive human resource development and social justice, manufacturing and services, urban development, energy security, infrastructure, innovation, research and development, next generation reforms. Again, a question can be framed around what are the government initiatives for urban development or urban development. There are major challenges in urban development in India. How those challenges can be overcome. So question can again be framed around any of these 9 themes. So this is how we move forward in reading this year's budget. Now, first priority section, productivity and resilience in agriculture. Productivity and resilience in agriculture. So while we are reading every theme, what we have to do? We have to note down certain important data which can be used as either as an introduction or conclusion or value addition anywhere in the question. And these data should be there for almost every section of the or almost every sector of the economy. You should have data prepared for agriculture sector. You should have data prepared for industries, manufacturing sector, service sector, or even agriculture allied sector, etc. Data should be prepared. 1 or 2 data is more than enough. 3 data is more than enough to answer any question, because these data are reusable in any type of question on this particular sector. So this year 1.52 lakh crore has been announced for agriculture and allied sector. Now this can always be used either in conclusion or introduction depending upon the type of the question. That the budget 24-25 has allocated 1.52 lakh crore for agriculture and allied sector this year. So this can be used. Then moving forward, transforming agriculture research. Now what are the government initiatives taken for increasing productivity and resilience in agriculture? First is transforming agriculture research. Increase research funding. The target is not set yet, but the government has said that we are going to increase research funding in the agriculture. There is no target set in the budget yet, but the government has just said that we will increase research spending in agriculture. So this can be used in way forward or in conclusion, that the government initiatives to increase research funding in agriculture, to increase spending in research funding in agriculture is a step in right direction. Or it can also be used as in challenges that the government has announced that they will increase research investment in research funding for agriculture section, but they have not set any target. So it depends upon the question, it depends upon the circumstances how to use this information, but this information should be available with you. The government has taken increase the research funding for agriculture sector. Release of new varieties. Now the government has said that 109 high yielding and climate resilient varieties of 32 field and horticulture crops will be released this year. So 109 varieties of high yield varieties will be released. Then national cooperation policy. Now the government has said that national cooperation policy, the government has announced national cooperation policy. If there is a question on cooperative sector, you can use this point, that national cooperation policy. Now the question is either on cooperative sector or agriculture. This point can be used, that the government has announced national cooperation policy for systematic and orderly all-round development of the cooperative sector. Now this again becomes a value addition point. Natural farming, the government has said that 1 crore farmers will be initiated into natural farming in 2 years. Now this is the target that the government has set. Again, any question on agriculture, any question on climate change, or any question on the natural farming itself, zero budget natural farming, again question can be framed around zero budget natural farming. You can use this, that the government has set the target of 1 crore farmers to be initiated into natural farmings in the next 2 years. 10,000 need-based bio-input resource centers will also be established. Now, mission for pulses and oilseeds. Mission for pulses and oilseeds, it has been initiated by this year's budget, which says that the pulses and oilseeds production and storage and marketing will be strengthened. So a new mission is announced, mission for pulses and oilseeds by the government of India. Again, this can be a government initiative to increase farmers' income, increase production of pulses, or for nutrition security of India. Again, single point can be used in multiple answers. Now, this mission for pulses and oilseeds, it can be used if there is a question on agriculture sector. If there is a question on sustainability of agriculture, then you can say that this should be used to reduce our cereal production. Or if there is a question on nutrition security of the nation. Now again, you can talk about pulses and oilseeds. Pulses become very important for nutritional security of the nation. So this point can be used, that the government has started mission for pulses and oilseeds. Vegetable production and supply chain, large scale cluster will be developed for vegetable production and closer to major consumption center. So there are major consumption centers, major cities around the India, and large scale clusters will be developed for vegetable production and supply chain. And digital public infrastructure for agriculture. Now, before this year, digital public infrastructure was always in focus, but digital public infrastructure specifically for agriculture sector has been announced, where 6 crore farmers and their land will be brought into the farmers and land registries. So the government has set the target that 6 crore farmers and their lands will be digitized, the land records will be digitized, and those records will be brought into the farmers and land registers. Shrimp production and export, government has focused upon shrimp production exports. Now again, this can be used in blue revolution question, this can be used in a question on agriculture allied sector, or a fishing question is on fishing, then also this can be used. So shrimp production and export, financial support, and setting up of network of nucleus breeding center. Now the government has started new nuclear breeding center. So new nuclear breeding center will be established. A network of nucleus breeding centers will be established for shrimp production and export. Now, second thing, employment and skilling. Now, in the past theme, we have seen 8 initiatives that have been taken by Government of India for the productivity and resilience of agriculture. Now, these 8 initiatives are more than enough to write any way forward or any government initiatives that the government has taken for agriculture section in India. That is more than enough. These 8 points are more than enough. So that part is taken care of here. Employment and skilling, to facilitate employment, skilling, and education, the government has other opportunities for 4.1 crore youth over 5-year period. The government has set the target to facilitate employment and skilling for 4.1 crore youth over the 5-year period. PM has announced 5 packages, out of which 3 packages are here for employment and skilling. So the first package is first timers. For the first timers, when you first time get a job, then government is going to provide you installment up to rupees 15,000. So government is going to provide you 3 installments up to rupees 15,000 if your income is less than 1 lakh rupees. Now there is a clause here. If your income is less than 1 lakh rupees per month, then government is going to provide you, the installments of rupees 15,000 when if it's your first job. So this is going to expected to benefit 210 lakh youth, that is 2.1 crore youth will benefit from it, who will get first job in the financial year 24-25. When they get the first job, if they are registered under EPFO, if they are registered under PF, then the government is going to provide them 15,000 rupees 3 installment if their income is less than 1 lakh rupees per month. Second is job creation in manufacturing. The first was for the first timers, the government is going to provide them, certain benefits of 15,000. For job creation in manufacturing linked to first time employees. Now again, if the first time employees are employed in the manufacturing sectors, then incentives to both employees and employees for EPFO contribution for the first 4 years. Now the government has said that their EPFO contribution, the government is going to provide incentive for EPFO contribution for the first 4 years, and this is expected to benefit 30 lakh youth. This was expected to benefit 2.1 crore youth. This is expected to benefit 30 lakh youth who are getting jobs in the manufacturing sector for the first time. Third is support to employers. Now government is going to reimburse EPFO contribution of employers up to 3,000 rupees per month for 2 years for all new hires. Now, so this is the purpose of all these 3 schemes of the PM's package are to incentivize employing new people in industries. Now, the first part will incentivize people to take job in formal employment, so they will try to register in PF. Second is to incentivize manufacturing sector employees and employers. So here the both employers as well as employee will get incentives linked to EPFO contribution for the first 4 years. This is going to benefit 30 lakh youth. Then third is support to employers for providing EPFO contribution. So if they are registering their employees under PF and they are giving them PF benefits, then the government will give us EPFO contribution of employers up to 3,000 rupees per month. So 3,000 rupees per month for 2 years for the new joining. So all these 3 benefits are available for new joinees. First one is in any sector. Second one will be provided to the employee. Second was is in manufacturing sector, will be provided to both employer and employee. Third one is again in any sector, but it will be provided to employer. Here the contribution, employer's contribution of 3,000 per month up to 2 years will be reimbursed by Government of India. Now, for education, employment, and skilling, the contribution this year has been a significant 1.48 lakh crore. In the for agriculture and allied sector, it was 1.5 lakh crore. This is also around 1.5 lakh crore for education, employment, and skilling. For women employment, the government has started first the working women hostels in collaboration with industry and establishing crèches. So the government is going to establish working women hostels in collaboration with industry. Women specific skilling program will be initiated, and market access for women SSG enterprises will be started by Government of India. So these three are for women employment. So all these initiatives are going to be about employment. This one specifically is for women employment, to increase women employment. First is women working hostels in collaboration with industry. Second is women specific skilling programs. What are the skills that the women require? What are the industries where women employment can be increased? Third is market access for women SSG enterprises. So women self-help groups are there, their enterprises exist, and those enterprises will be linked with market. These are to promote women employment. Next one is for model skilling loan scheme. So the model skilling loan scheme will provide loan up to rupees 7.5 lakh with a guarantee from Government of India. Expected to help 25,000 students every year. So students who are taking a loan will be provided, the guarantee will be provided by Government of India if the loan is about up to 7.5 lakh. So this model skill loan scheme is provided by Government of India. Then education loans are also there. If you are taking loan for higher education in domestic institution, now this is available for domestic institution, not for foreign institutions. For higher education in domestic institution, if you are taking a loan up to rupees 10 lakh, the government is going to provide you interest subvention of 3%. So for this purpose, e-vouchers will be provided directly every year to 1 lakh students. So 1 lakh students will be provided e-vouchers by the Government of India directly, and these e-vouchers can be used by those students to get 3% interest subventions when are taking loan from the bank. Now this there is a limit that this interest subvention can be for up to rupees 10 lakh loan only, and this can be for higher education in domestic sector only. So till now we have talked about what are the initiatives that the government has taken for skilling and for employment. So for employment, there are three PM's packages. First is for first timers. The government is going to provide 3 installments of rupees 15,000. Second is for first timers in manufacturing sector, where the government is going to provide incentives for contribution in EPF. Third is for employers who are registering new employees in the PF, for which the government is going to give reimbursement up to rupees 3,000 for the next 2 years if they register new employees in the Provident Fund. Here we have talked about 3 schemes. Women employment. For women employment, there are 3 initiatives: women working hostels, women specific skilling program, and market access for women SSG enterprises. Model skilling loan scheme, skill loan schemes. Model skill loan schemes will provide loan up to 7.5 lakh with a guarantee from the government, and expected to help 25,000 students. And education loans, where if you are taking a loan for higher education in domestic sector up to 10 lakh rupees, 3% interest subvention will be provided by Government of India, and for this e-vouchers will be provided to 1 lakh students every year directly. So these are the 6 initiatives for employment. Now skilling program, this is called 4th scheme. Now the budget has talked about 5 schemes, so this is the 4th scheme, which is skilling program. So the skilling program will 20 lakh youth will be skilled over a 5-year period. The government has set the target of 20 lakh youth will be skilled over a period of 5 years. Here 1,000 industrial training institutes will be upgraded in hub and spoke arrangement. So first is the target that 20 lakh youth will be skilled in the next 5 years. How will they be skilled? By establishing 1,000 industrial training institutes. So 1,000 industrial training institutes will be established in hub and spoke arrangement, and course and content design will be aligned as per skill needs of the industry. So these institutes will be linked or aligned with the industry. What are the skills which are required in those industries? So this is the fourth scheme of skilling program. Fifth scheme is internship opportunities. Now, this internship opportunities will be provided in 500 top companies in India to 1 crore youth in 5 years. So, the target is to provide internship to 1 crore youth in the next 5 years in the top 500 companies of India. How will this be provided? This will, the government will provide allowance of rupees 5,000 per month along with the one-time assistance of rupees 6,000 through the CSR funds. So, till now, what was happening that the companies were not allowed to pay the interns or employees out of their CSR fund. But this year, the government has allowed that if you are, providing internship opportunities under this scheme to the people, then 1/10, that is 10% of the internship amount can be taken from CSR. So here the companies are incentivized to to provide internship to students, to provide internship to job seekers, and 1/10 of this internship cost can be borne out of CSR fund. And similarly, government will also provide allowance of 5,000 per month along with the one-time assistance of 6,000 through the CSR fund. So through the CSR fund, government will also provide 6,000 rupees one-time assistance as well as 5,000 rupees per month to the internee. So this is the target. Now here the target is much more important because the question around this scheme will not be asked by UPSC. All these schemes which we have talked about yet, there are very rare chances that UPSC asks questions around any one of those schemes unless and until that scheme itself is very big. If you talk about Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, the question can be asked. If you talk about National Infrastructure Pipeline, the question can be asked about that particular scheme. But if you talk about internship opportunities, it is very difficult to frame a question around it, and more difficult will be to frame an answer around it. So you are not expected to know these schemes in detail. What you have to know, what is the name of the scheme, what is the target set by that scheme, or what is the initiative or budget allocation in that particular scheme. That is more than enough, because these schemes will only become either points or value addition in your answer. These schemes will not become your answer itself. You understood? These schemes will only become points or value addition in your answers. So here, the internship opportunities, all you need to know that 500 companies, 1 crore youth in next 5 years. 500 companies, 1 crore youth in next 5 years. This, if you can remember, is good. If you cannot, not a problem, because you are not required to know everything about any scheme. You just need to know that there is a scheme. That is more than enough to write the answer. Now, the next, the priority area of Government of India. Next is inclusive human resource development and social justice. So, for inclusive human resource development and social justice, government is focusing upon Purvodaya. Purvodaya, the government is targeting these 5 states. Here, the only 4 states are, marked. There are 5 states. That is, Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, as well as Andhra Pradesh. So, Andhra Pradesh is also part of Purvodaya. So, here the government is focusing upon Vikas B or Virasat B. So, development without, affecting the culture or heritage or, nature of those people. So, Vikas B, Virasat B is the tagline of Purvodaya scheme. So, the Purvodaya, the plan for endowment rich states in the eastern parts, covering Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. So there are 5 states: Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal. 6 states: Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. There is Bihar, there is Jharkhand, there is West Bengal, there is Odisha, and Andhra Pradesh. 5 states are covered here, and these states are called endowment rich states, and government is going to focus upon the development of these 5 states under the scheme Purvodaya for generation of economic opportunities to attain Viksit Bharat. So, what are the initiatives that have been announced this year? What are the plans that have been announced in this year's budget? The first is industrial node at Gaya. So, Gaya will be part of the Amritsar Kolkata industrial corridor. So on the Amritsar Kolkata industrial corridor, an industrial node will be created at Gaya, where new industries will be developed to cater to the demands of the industrial corridor, that is Amritsar and Kolkata industrial corridor. So industrial node at Gaya will be created. Patna Purnia Expressway will be constructed. Aksar Bhagalpur Expressway will be constructed. 2,400 megawatt power plant at Peer Panti will be constructed. All these are in Bihar. New airports, medical colleges, and sports infrastructure will be constructed in Bihar. Rupees 15,000 crore of the development of for the development of capital city in Andhra Pradesh. So rupees 15,000 crore have been provided for Andhra Pradesh. So for Mission Purvodaya, you just need to know what are the initiatives that the government has taken for Bihar and Andhra Pradesh. Here industrial node is at Gaya, Patna Purnia Expressway, Buxar Bhagalpur Expressway, 2,400 megawatt power plant at Peer Panti. Again, this is very rare chance are there that a question is framed around Purvodaya itself. But if there is, then at least you can quote these two, three. That is more than enough. Otherwise, if there is any question on inclusive development, then you can talk about Mission Purvodaya. That Purvodaya is initiated by Government of India. The scheme is initiated by Government of India, where they will focus upon the rich, endowment states of naturally rich states from Bihar to Andhra Pradesh, and these states will be focused by Government of India to ensure that the growth is inclusive and no action is left behind, under which these initiatives are taken. You can write one or two examples. That is more than enough. Now, for inclusive development, for women empowerment, what is the initiatives taken? 3 lakh crore for schemes benefiting women and girls. So the government has said that rupees 3 lakh crore will be invested this year for schemes benefiting women and girls. Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan. So new mission is there, Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan, which is focus upon saturation coverage of the tribal families. So this will try to provide all the schemes which are available to the tribal families. So saturation is basically saturation coverage means to ensure that everything that should be given to them is given to them. For example, public distribution system is there, electricity is there, water is there, everything should be given to them. So the saturation should be achieved here. So saturation coverage for tribal families in tribal majority villages and aspirational districts. So those villages where the tribal is in majority, or the aspirational districts, 112 aspirational districts selected by Niti Aayog. In these areas, this scheme will be, this Abhiyan, Pradhan Mantri Janjatiya Unnat Gram Abhiyan will be established, will cover 63,000 villages benefiting around 5 crore tribal people. Next is for Northeast India, more than 100 branches of India Post Payments Bank IPPB, India Post Payment Bank will be set up in the northeastern region. So more than 100 branches will be set up in the northeastern region of IPPB. For rural development, 2.66 lakh crore for rural development, including rural infrastructure. So for rural infrastructure, 2.66 lakh crore have been announced for rural development this year. And for Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 3 crore additional houses will be constructed under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. So these are the initiatives that the government has taken for inclusive human resource development and social justice. So women empowerment is there, tribal empowerment is there, northeastern India is there, rural India is there, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana providing housing for all. 3 crore houses, additional houses will be constructed in the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Now, 3 priority areas have been taken care of. What are the government initiatives that have been taken in these 3 priority areas? Now comes manufacturing and services. Support for promotion of MSME. Now, for manufacturing and services, there are specific initiatives taken for MSME industries. So, what are the initiatives for MSME? Credit guarantee schemes for MSME sector in manufacturing, MSME in manufacturing sectors. So, those MSMEs which are there in manufacturing sector, where the guarantee cover of up to rupees 100 crore will be provided under the credit guarantee scheme. So, credit guarantee scheme for MSME in manufacturing sector. Again, last year there was a question upon the MSME sector. So, credit guarantee schemes, a lot of students wrote about, a lot of aspirants wrote about credit guarantee scheme provided to the MSME sector in manufacturing sector. So this was a point which was used by a lot of aspirants in last year's mains question of GS3. I think it was first or second question only. So this is how you actually use this information in your answer writing. This information is not going to be useful in the format it is provided here, or in the format that is provided by Government of India. You have to use it innovatively wherever it is required. So for MSME in manufacturing sector, if there is a question on MSME, if there is a question on manufacturing, then this point will become that credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs in manufacturing sector, providing guarantee cover up to 100 crore. New assessment model for MSME credit. New assessment model will be created for MSME credit to ensure that public sector banks have the expertise required to do the assessment, to do the credit assessment of MSMEs. Now, it is a challenge for public sector banks that they do not have expertise to do credit assessment of MSME sector. Mudra loans, the limit of Mudra loans have been increased from 10 lakh to 20 lakh. The limit of Mudra loans have been increased from 10 lakh to 20 lakh under the Tarun category. Next is credit support to MSME during stress period will be provided by government. An MSME unit for food irradiation quality and safety test. So MSME units will be established for food irradiation quality and safety test by supported by the Government of India. And other initiatives for support for manufacturing, promotion of MSMEs, enhance scope of mandatory onboarding in trades from rupees 500 crore turnover to rupees 200 crore for buyers. So what is trades? Trade is trade receivable depository. So what happens here is MSMEs sell their goods to industries, and these industries then can use those receipts to get them use those receipts to discount them in the market. Now, when they use those receipts to discount in the market, there is a limit which is provided by Government of India that if you have turnover about 500 crore, then only you can discount those receipts. But this limit has been reduced to 200 crore for the buyer. So if I am a big industrialist and my turnover is less than 500 crore, now it is more than 200 crore, then I can, if I have taken any goods from or I have taken any goods from the MSME sector, then I can use those receipts to the MSME sector employees can use the MSME sector can use those receipts to discount in the market. SIDBI will open new branches to expand its reach to serve all major MSME clusters within 3 years. So SIDBI will focus upon all major MSME clusters within the next 3 years, will expand its branches. 50 multi-products food irradiation units in MSME sector. 100 food quality and safety test labs will be established. E-commerce exports hubs to enable MSMEs and traditional artisans to sell their products in the international market. So the e-commerce exports hub will be created to enable MSMEs to sell their traditional artisans to sell the products in the international market. So traditional artisans can now sell their products in the international markets by using e-commerce export hubs. These are the initiatives that have been taken for promotion of MSMEs. What are the other initiatives for manufacturing and service sector? One is industrial park. So investment ready, plug and play industrial parks with complete infrastructure in more than in or near 100 cities. So around 100 cities will be covered with the industrial parks where plug and play in the plug and play conditions where the industrial parks will be completed in the infrastructure in the near 100 cities. For rental housing with dormitory type accommodation for industrial workers. So rental housing will be provided for industrial workers. Dormitory type accommodation for industrial workers. What it means that industrial workers will now be provided houses in the dormitory form accommodation in the on rent. Next is shipping industry, ownership, leasing and flagging reforms to improve the share of Indian shipping industry. Critical mineral missions is started by Government of India. So government has announced critical mineral mission, which for domestic production, recycling and critical minerals and overseas acquisition of critical mineral assets. Offshore mining and minerals, auction of the first tranche of the offshore block for mining. तो ऑफशोर माइनिंग के लिए भी ऑक्शन have been initiated by Government of India. National company law tribunals, strengthening of the tribunals and appellate tribunals to speed up insolvency resolution. So the purpose is to speed up insolvency resolution. Additional tribunals will be established for speeding up insolvency resolution. So these are the changes which have been taken for manufacturing and service sector by Government of India. First is industrial park. So around 100 cities will be covered. In plug and play industrial parks, rental housing will be provided, accommodation will be provided in dormitory form to the industrial workers. Shipping industry reforms will be made in ownership, leasing and flagging. Critical mineral mission, where the domestic production, recycling of critical minerals and overseas acquisition of critical minerals of assets will be supported by Government of India in the critical mineral mission. Offshore mining of minerals, where the auction of first tranche of offshore mining or offshore blocks of mining is done by Government of India. National company law tribunal, here the focus will be on strengthening the tribunals and appellate tribunal, as well as establishment of additional tribunals to resolve insolvency resolution at a speedy rate. So these are the initiatives for manufacturing and service sector by Government of India in this year's budget. Now we move forward to urban development. So for urban development, what are the initiatives that have been taken in this year's budget? First is stamp duty. Now again, these can be used in way forward or initiatives which the government has taken, encouraging to states to lower stamp duties for purchasing properties purchased by women. So the government is saying to ensure, so currently around the ownership of women in land is around 14%. So the government is saying that if there are 49% women, then ownership of assets should also be around 48 or 49% for women. But that is not there. So to incentivize that properties are named in the name of the women, the government has said that states should reduce stamp duty. So encouraging states to lower stamp duties for properties purchased by women. Next is street market. So the government has envisioned a scheme to develop 100 weekly carts or street food hubs in select cities. So here the government will focus upon establishing 100 weekly carts, where every week a cart will be established, a vegetable cart देखा होगा आप लोगों ने. So 100 weekly carts or street food hubs in select cities will be developed. Transit-oriented development plan for 14 large cities. 14 large cities with population about 30 lakhs. Here transit-oriented development will happen. Now, what is transit-oriented development? You do not actually have to go in depth. Transit-oriented development will happen in 14 large cities. That is more than enough here. Water management. For water management, the government has said that promote water supply, sewage treatment and solid waste management projects and service of for 100 large cities through bankable projects. So here the government will focus again upon 100 large cities for water management, for solid waste water treatment, for sewage treatment, etc., and promote water supply. So what are the initiatives that have been taken for urban development? The first is reducing the stamp duty. Second is 100 weekly carts, street markets. Third is transit-oriented development in 14 large cities having population about 30 lakh. For water management, 100 large cities will be covered, where the water supply, sewage treatment and solid waste management projects will be initiated through bankable projects. For urban development, there is a new scheme for housing needs. So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana 2.0. Here, for urban development, needs of 1 crore poor middle class families will be addressed with an investment of 10 lakh crore. So the government has established 10 lakh, has said that 10 lakh crore investment will be made for development or construction of houses for urban poor and middle class families. Here 1 crore houses will be constructed under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana 2.0. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban 2.0. There are two segments of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana: Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Rural. So the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban needs of 1 crore poor and 1 crore houses will be built for poor and middle class families with a investment of 10 lakh crore. Second is enabling policies and regulation for efficient and transparent rental housing markets. So here the focus is on constructing the houses. Here the focus is upon to ensure that the houses which are constructed already should be utilized by the people. So the focus is upon transparent rental housing market. So rental housing market should be transparent, the standard should be set, there should be lease agreement, etc. So this will ensure or cater to the needs of housing needs of the people. Interest subsidy to facilitate loan at affordable rates. So the government is going to provide interest subsidy to facilitate loan at affordable rate, and central assistance of 2.2 lakh crore in the next 5 years for housing development in the urban areas. For housing needs of the urban areas, the government is going to provide 2.2 lakh crore in the next 5 years. For energy security, what are the initiatives that have been taken by the budget this year? So this year's budget focus upon two types of energy. One is nuclear energy, other is solar energy. So nuclear energy has again taken a central stage in the energy security of the nation. Here, nuclear energy will play an important role in India's energy security, as per the the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and initiatives with private sector in nuclear energy. So the government is till now, this role of private sector in nuclear energy has been very minimal. The government is saying we need to establish small nuclear power plants where the private sector can also take part. So the government is now promoting that the private sector should take part in nuclear energy. So for that, what are the initiatives that have been taken to promote private sector in nuclear energy? The first is setting up of Bharat small reactors. So Bharat small reactors will be small nuclear power plants which can be set up with small investment from the private sector. Research and development of Bharat small modular reactors and new technology for nuclear energy. So R&D fund will be established by Government of India for development of Bharat small modular reactors. So Bharat small modular reactors and research and development in the nuclear energy will develop small nuclear reactors. So the purpose is basically to do more research and development and make it more cost effective. And this research and development will be funded from rupees 1 lakh crore corpus, which was announced in the interim budget. So in the interim budget, Finance Minister announced that rupees 1 lakh crore corpus will be created for research and development in the nation, and for research and development, out of those 1 lakh crore rupees, some amount will be taken, not complete 1 lakh crore, but some amount will be taken for research and development in nuclear reactors, for development of Bharat small modular reactors and new technologies for nuclear energy. So what are the keywords here? The keywords first is for energy security. Nuclear energy has become a central point. Nuclear energy has now become an important pillar for India's energy security. Second is setting up of Bharat small reactors. Private sector's participation will be, encouraged by Government of India. Bharat small reactors will be set up, and the R&D corpus fund of rupees 1 lakh crore will be used for research and development of Bharat small modular reactors. So this is for development of nuclear energy in India. Now we move forward to the other aspects of energy security. First, we focused upon nuclear energy. Now, pumped storage policy. Here we will focus upon renewable energy. What the pumped storage policy is basically use the renewable energy to pump water in an area, so that that energy is stored in the form of pumped water storage, and whenever you need that energy, you again release that water and generate energy from that water. So a pumped storage policy is initiated by Government of India for storage of renewable energy. The problem with renewable energy is not is very inconsistent in nature. The solar energy is not generated equally in every day in the year. So the problem arises when more production happen than the demand of the at particular time. So at that time it becomes very difficult to store that particular energy. If you can store it, then you can use it when the production is less and demand is high. So one of the way to store is pumped storage policy. Now a keyword used here, AUSC, Advanced Ultra Supercritical Thermal Power Plant. You can use this in your answer, AUSC, Thermal Power Plant. Or you can also use full form if the time permits, Advanced Ultra Supercritical Thermal Power Plant. So 800 megawatt plant will be established by a joint venture of NTPC and BHEL. So AUSC is a new keyword which you can use in energy security, where Advanced Ultra Supercritical Thermal Power Plant will be established 800 megawatt by BHEL and NTPC joint venture. Support to traditional micro, small and small industries. So here there are certain supports will be provided by the government of India to micro and small industries, traditional micro and small industries. What the support will be provided? First, the government will provide support in energy audit of micro and small industries in 60 clusters. So 60 clusters have been identified by government of India, and in these 60 clusters, whatever the small and micro enterprises are there, the government is going to help them in conducting the energy audit. Now, what is the purpose of energy audit? The purpose of energy audit is to identify how much energy this is consuming, what is the energy requirement, or how can we make this particular enterprise more energy efficient. So the government will help in conducting the energy audit in these 60 clusters. And once the energy audit is conducted, if these industries are required, if these micro and small enterprises are required to transform from say fossil fuel based energy to renewable energy, then government will also provide financial support to shift them from to cleaner forms of energy. So this is the initiatives for support for traditional and micro and small industries. So in the interim budget, the government announced that free electricity will be provided to 1 crore houses. So how that will be provided? For that, Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana is initiated. It will focus upon installing solar rooftop solar plants. So 1 crore households obtain free electricity up to 300 units every month. So under this initiative, government will help the houses, 1 crore houses, to establish rooftop solar power plants. Once you have rooftop solar power plants, then these 1 crore houses will have 300 units, up to 300 units every month, free of cost available to them. So this will benefit these people. 1.28 crore registrations and 14 lakh applications have already been received by government of India. So there is a huge success that the budget announced that the Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Muft Bijli Yojana has been a huge success. 1.28 crore registrations have already happened, and these among these houses, 1 crore houses will be selected, where they will be rooftop solar power plants will be established or installed there, and that will be able to generate around 300 units every month. So for future energy, what is the growth that India has seen in different types of energy? So future energy is basically here what we are talking about. There are two types of energy which the government of India is currently focusing. The first is nuclear energy, and the second is solar energy. Solar energy is today more than nuclear energy, and these two energies. So there can be a question on solar energy per se, or there can be a question on nuclear energy itself. What are the challenges? What are the initiatives that the government has taken to develop this particular energy? So initiatives, we have already talked about it, but you should also have certain data to start or to add value to your answer. So for nuclear energy, the allocation by government of India last year was 442 crore. This year allocation is 2,228 crore. That is around 5 times of last year's budgeted estimates. So nuclear power projects, the budget allocation for nuclear power projects have been increased by 5 times. That is 400% increase in the allocation for nuclear power projects. Whereas for solar power grids, the allocations have been increased from 4,900 crore, that is around 5,000 crore, to 10,000 crore, that is doubled. For nuclear power projects, the allocation has been 5 times, has been increased by 5 times, and solar power projects, the allocation has been increased by about 2 times. So this again, you can how to use this in your answer is, after you introduce, if there is a question on nuclear energy or solar energy, after you write the introduction, just draw a small, chart here, like this. Here you write 442, then one chart here, 228. This is how you write budgeted allocation, EE, budgeted estimate, 2023-24, budgeted estimates 2024-25. This is how to draw a small chart after the introduction to add value to your answer. So what you actually do is you draw a small chart there and use this information. Do not write this in words format. Writing it in a chart format is a better way, especially in GS3. If in GS3 you can draw a graph or draw a chart in almost every answer, then that is going to add huge value to your answer. For infrastructure, what are the government initiatives for infrastructure? First of all, capital expenditure of 11,11,111 crore. That is 3.4% of GDP for development of infrastructure. Second is rupees 1.5 lakh crore to states as long-term interest fee to loans to support resource allocation. So here, the government will provide 1.5 lakh crore assistance to the states as long-term interest-free loan for development of infrastructure. Then phase 4 of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana will be launched to provide all-weather connectivity to 25,000 rural habitats. So for infrastructure, three major data or three major parts of the budget. First is the budget itself of infrastructure. The capital expenditure has been increased to 11,11,000 crore. Second is the interest-free loan provided to states for development of infrastructure. Third is fourth phase of Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana will extend the roads to 25,000 more villages. What has been done for tourism infrastructure? For tourism infrastructure, in Bihar itself, there is a Vishnupad temple in Gaya. So in Vishnupad temple corridor will be developed, and Mahabodhi temple corridor at Bodh Gaya. There are two cities, Gaya and Bodh Gaya. In Gaya there is Vishnupad temple, in Bodh Gaya there is Mahabodhi temple. So Vishnupad temple corridor and Mahabodhi temple corridor will be constructed on the lines of Kashi Vishwanath temple corridor. Comprehensive development of Rajgir will be done. Rajgir is a significant religious site for Hindus, Buddhists as well as Jain. Development of Nalanda as a tourist center will be done. Assistance to develop Odisha's scenic beauty, temples, monuments, craftsmanship, wildlife sanctuaries, natural landscapes, and pristine beaches. So, for development of tourism infrastructure, government has focused upon the cultural tourism, that is development of the Bodh Gaya complex and the Vishnupad temple complex. The corridor will be developed. And Rajgir will be developed. The all-round development, comprehensive development of Rajgir will be done. Nalanda University will again be developed as a tourist center, and natural beauty of Odisha will also be taken care of in development of. Assistance will be provided to Odisha. Next is irrigation and flood mitigation. So what are the government initiatives here for irrigation and flood mitigation? First is financial support for projects with estimated cost of 11,500 crore. Such as Koshi Mechi intrastate link and 20 ongoing new schemes. Financial assistance will be provided for cost of 11,500 crore. You can write example of Koshi Mechi intrastate link. Assistance for flood management and related projects in Assam, Sikkim and Uttarakhand. So in Assam, Sikkim and Uttarakhand, floods are very frequent. For example, in Sikkim, glacial lake overflow floods happen. In Uttarakhand, cloudburst is very common. In Assam, the overflow of Brahmaputra river is very frequent, because of which flood happens. So for flood management, assistance will be provided to these three states. Assistance for reconstruction and rehabilitation in Himachal Pradesh. So for reconstruction and rehabilitation in Himachal Pradesh, assistance will be provided by Government of India. Innovation, research and development. For innovation, research and development, Anusandhan National Research, operationalization of Anusandhan National Research Fund for basic research and prototype development. So new research fund is established by Government of India, named is Anusandhan National Research Fund. Again, this can be used as value addition or way forward in your answers. Operationalization of Anusandhan National Research Fund is a step in right direction for development of research and innovation in India. Private sector driven research and innovation at commercial scale with financing pool of rupees 1 lakh crore will be initiated by Government of India, and space economy, a venture capital fund of 1,000 crore is to be set up for development of space economy. So venture capital fund will support new startups who are developing in the space economy or space sector. What are the next generation reforms that have been taken by Government of India related to urban and rural land related actions? So next generation reforms for urban and rural land related actions. So where this information can be used, again this information can be used in science and tech, where what is the use of science and tech in development of the nation, or in development of the rural area. If there is a question specific on rural development, then also this question can be asked. And this can also be written in land reforms. Land reforms is also an important topic of GS3. So in land reforms also you can write about all the initiatives that the government has taken in this year's budget. In the land reforms, these are the major recent initiatives in the land reforms. The first is land records in urban areas will be digitized with GS mapping. So the urban areas land records will be digitized using the GIS mapping. ULPIN, there is a unique land parcel identification number. So ULPIN, this is short form is ULPIN. So ULPIN or Bhu Aadhaar for all lands. So GIS mapping will be done of urban land. All the land will be provided, rural as well as urban land will be provided with ULPIN or Bhu Aadhaar. Similar to Aadhaar card that we have, Bhu Aadhaar will be developed, and this Bhu Aadhaar will become unique identity of that land parcel. Digitization of cadastral maps. Cadastral maps are basically the holistic maps which show how the different land parcels are divided and how they are connected to each other. This is basically a big map of several maps connected together. So digitization of cadastral maps, survey of map subdivision as per current ownership. So the map subdivisions, that is in the cadastral maps, there are several subdivisions that this land belongs to me, this land belongs to you. So as per the current ownership, the survey of map subdivision will be done. Establishment of land registry. Land registry will be established to register lands of the people. And finally, linkages to the farmers registries. So these land registries will be linkages linked to farmer registries. So there are two separate registries. There is land registry and there is farmers registry, and these two will be linked together. So these are the initiatives for urban and rural land in the next gen reforms, that is use of technology for land reforms in the urban and rural areas. GIS mapping is there, Bhu Aadhaar is there, survey of maps is there, digitization of cadastral maps is there, development of land registry is there, establishment of land registry is there, and linking it with the farmers registry also is part of the next generation reforms. Now come the part B. Part A consisted of the various initiatives that have been taken by government. Part B consists of expense, tax reforms. What are the changes that have been made in tax by the government of India, or what are the changes made in the expenditure? What are the incomes and expenditures of the government of India? That is more discussed in the part B. So the tax reforms, the government has announced review of Income Tax Act 1961. What will be done in the review? You do not actually have to know. You just have to know that this is part of the tax reforms that the government is reviewing the Income Tax Act 1961. Again, this can be used as a value addition if there is a question on tax reforms. Simplification of charities and TDS. Again, this is very technical. You do not have to know what are the simplification which have been made. In the first of all, the review has not been done. It is announced that review will be done. Whereas simplification of charities and TDS, certain changes have been announced, but those are very technical. You do not need to know. Reduce pendency of cases by providing more manpower to decide and hear appeals, and Vivad Se Vishwas scheme 2024 to resolve income tax disputes. To resolve income tax disputes, Vivad Se Vishwas scheme, this have been announced several times in different past budgets also. This year's budgets also include Vivad Se Vishwas scheme 2024 to resolve income tax disputes, and Finance Minister said that more manpower will be provided to decide and hear appeals related to pendency of tax cases. Deepening of tax base is also done. For example, security transaction tax, the futures of securities, futures and options. There are two types of derivatives. Futures and options are two types of derivatives. So security transaction tax on futures and options have been increased. For futures, it has been increased to 0.02%. For options, it has been increased to 0.1%. Tax income received on buyback of shares is in the hands of recipients. So earlier, if the company bought back shares from me, then company used to pay tax upon that, company used to pay TDS on that. But now the tax will be provided, tax will not be paid by the company, tax will be paid by the recipient himself. So if I am selling shares to the company, then I will have to pay tax on the income that I have earned on those selling of particular taxes. So deepening of tax brackets is done by increasing the security transaction tax on futures as well as options. On futures 0.02%, on options 0.1%. Sector specific custom duty proposals. So what are the custom duty changes? Custom duty is a form of indirect tax. And what are the changes which have been made in the custom duty? First is fully exempted 3 more cancer medicines from custom duties. So 3 more, earlier also many medicines have been exempted by custom duties. 3 more cancer medicines now have been exempted from the custom duties, and this will make medicines affordable. Reduce basic custom duty to 15% on mobile phone, mobile charger, etc. So, a mobile phone and mobile charger, etc. will now the basic custom duty reduced to 15%, which will benefit mobile industry. Reduce custom duty on gold and silver to 6% and platinum to 6.4%. This will help in domestic value addition, because we import raw gold and the platinum, and we process them and we export them. So domestic value addition will be benefited by it. Reduce basic custom duty on shrimp and fish feed to 5%. Again, we have seen the government has initiated, shrimp exports hub. The government has talked about shrimp exports hub. So reduce basic custom duty on shrimp is again initiatives that have been taken by government to promote the shrimp industry. So enhance competitiveness in marine exports. So basic custom duty on shrimp and fish have been fish feed have been reduced to 5%. Exempted more capital goods for manufacturing of solar cells and panels. So capital goods for manufacturing of solar cells and panels is removing custom duty from those capital goods will help in developing more and more solar panel manufacturing in India. So it will support energy transition in India. And fully exempt custom duties on 25 critical minerals. So there are critical minerals. Out of those 25 critical minerals are exempted completely from custom duties. So this will give boost to strategic sectors. So what are the direct tax proposals that have been taken by Government of India? In the direct tax proposals, it refers to compliance burden. So to reduce the compliance burden, promotes entrepreneurship spirit and provide tax relief to the citizens. So to reduce the compliance burden, government has taken several direct tax proposal. First is rationalization of capital gains. Here the capital gains have been increased by Government of India. UPSC had already asked the question on long-term capital gains. That year in 2018, capital gains were reduced. So as the capital gains were reduced, UPSC asked the question. This year, capital gains have been increased. So short-term capital gains for certain financial assets, not for all types of short-term capital gains, but for certain financial assets. What are the certain financial assets have not been clarified by Government of India yet, but short-term capital gains for certain financial assets to attract 20% tax rate. Earlier it was 15%. Earlier it was 15%. So this has been increased from 15% to 20%. Most probably it is going to be for equities and debentures, etc. Long-term capital gains on all financial and non-financial assets. So this is not for specific financial assets. This is for all financial and non-financial assets to attract tax rate of 12.5%. Earlier it was 10%. Earlier it was 10%. This has been increased from 10% to 12.5%. So short-term capital gains tax for certain financial assets have been increased from 15% to 20%. Long-term capital gains tax for all financial as well as non-financial assets was earlier 10%, is now increased to 12.5%. Increase in limit of exemption of capital gains on financial assets to 1.2 lakh 5 years. So whether it is short-term capital gains or long-term capital gains, if I am earning by selling financial assets. For example, I am selling shares and I am earning money from it. And if my earning is less than 1.25 lakh rupees per year, then I do not have to pay any tax on short as well as long term, capital gains. This is for only financial assets. That means if I sell land or if I sell, gold, etc., jewelry, etc., then I have to pay, LTCG or STCG, that is long-term capital gains or short-term capital gains. But for certain, for the financial assets, that is shares, debentures, bonds, etc., if I sell them and I earn less than rupees 1.25 lakh per month from those shares itself, then I do not have to pay any capital gains tax. Abolition of angel tax. Now, angel tax was, charged upon the angel investors. Angel investors were the investors who used to fund, startups in their starting phases. So, angel tax have been abolished by Government of India to promote startups. Simpler tax regime to operate domestic cruise. So, for domestic cruise, simpler tax regime is been announced. What exactly is done, you do not need to know. Provide safe harbor rates for foreign mining companies selling raw diamonds. Again, what it is, you do not need to know. Corporate tax rate on foreign companies reduced from 40% to 35%. Corporate tax rate on foreign, foreign companies. So earlier, foreign companies used to pay 40% tax rate. Now they have to pay 35% tax rates. So these are the initiatives that have been taken in the direct tax proposal. Unlisted bonds and debentures. Unlisted, what is unlisted? Which is not listed on stock exchange, which is not there on the stock exchange. So unlisted bonds and debentures, debt mutual funds, and market linked debentures. So bonds, debentures, debt mutual fund. Mutual funds are of various types. Mutual fund can be equity oriented mutual fund or debt oriented mutual funds. So debt mutual funds, market linked debentures, irrespective of the holding period, however, will attract tax on the capital gains at applicable rates. Regardless of holding period, they will attract tax on the capital gains on the applicable rates. So this is it. These are all the changes which have been made in direct tax proposals. We have talked about custom duties. What are the changes which were made in custom duties? What are the changes in direct tax proposals? There are also different other changes also have been announced in the direct tax. This is simplifying the new tax regime, which will help in saving up to rupees 17,500, up to rupees 17,500, not 17,500. Not everyone will benefit from 17,500. So what are the changes in the new tax regime have been made? First, the earlier the tax bracket was like this: 0 to 3 lakh. Whatever is your income, depending upon which you will pay taxes. If your income is 0 to 3 lakh, then you will pay 0 tax. Then 3 to 6 lakh, 5%. 6 to 9, 9 to 12, 12 to 15, and then more than 15. So there was a bracket of 3 lakh income, which was used in the earlier, tax regime in the last year. This year, this has been changed. First remains the same, that is 0 to 3 lakh, you do not pay any income tax, that is 0% income tax. Second comes 3 to 7 lakh. Earlier it was 3 to 6 lakh. Now it is 3 to 7 lakh. Here you need to pay 5% income tax. For 7 to 10 lakh, you need to pay 10% income tax. Now again, remember that this tax is paid only in that bracket only. So for a person earning around rupees 6 lakh, will not pay 5% on complete 6 lakh. These 3 lakh are exempted. Rest of the 3 lakh he will have to pay 5%. Here also, the person does not pay the 10% tax rate on 10 lakh rupees. Person will pay 5% on these 4 lakh and 10% on these 3 lakh. So this is how tax is calculated. So the first bracket is 0 to 3, then 3 to 7, 5%, then again gap of 3, 7 to 10, 10%, 10 to 12, 15%. Now the same. So these 3 brackets have changed. Earlier, this was 0 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 9, 9 to 12, and 12 to 15, and more than 15. But now this is 0 to 3. So here, this one, this one, this one. These 3 tax brackets have changed. The tax rate have remained same: 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and 30%. These tax brackets have remained same as earlier. So these are the simplification of new tax regime have been done. Standard deduction for salaried employees have been increased from 50,000 rupees to 75,000 rupees. If you do not know what is standard deduction, I will tell you in one simple line. If you understand well, if you do not understand, not a problem. You are not actually required to know. Standard deduction is basically whatever salary I get, out of which this amount I can reduce, and rest of the income I will consider as taxable income. I have gross salary, I will reduce standard deduction, and rest of the amount I will pay tax upon that income. That is my net salary. So if I am earning, suppose 10 lakh rupees, then earlier 50,000 were deducted from it. That means I will have to pay tax upon 9,50,000. Now I can deduct 75,000 rupees. Now if I can deduct 75,000 rupees, if I am earning 10 lakh rupees, then 75 deducted from it, I get 9 lakh. I have to pay tax upon 9,25,000. So standard deduction is increase. As a result, taxpayer will benefit from it. Deduction on family pension for pensioners increased from 15,000 to 25,000. Certain deductions was available for family pension. If I am receiving family pension, then I could deduct 15,000 from those amount. Now that has been increased to 25,000. Now again, you do not have to go into the nitty-gritty. Just remember, standard deduction for salaried employees increased from 50 to 75, and deduction for pension, family pension increased from 15,000 to 25,000. This is more than enough. Whatever is written here, if you write this in the answer, that is more than enough. You do not need to write more than that. So looking at the sources of rupee, again, for mains perspective, this is not very important because in prelims a question can be framed around it, but in mains the question framing around it is very difficult. But still we will look at it. Borrowings and liabilities have reduced from 34% to 27% this year. The GST income tax is more than GST this year. Last year GST was more than income tax. Income tax was 15%. GST was 17%. This year GST is 18% and income tax is 19%. So direct tax is more than indirect tax. Income tax, corporation tax is 17% here. Where does rupee go to? How the budget is utilized, where the expenditure is done. Again, the biggest part was in income. In receipts parts, the biggest part was borrowings and other liabilities. In expenditure part, the biggest part is interest payment. Interest payment was 20%. This year, this has changed. From the last many years, from the past decade itself, I have seen that interest payment have been the highest payment that the government is making. This year, this has changed. Interest payment is 19%, whereas state share of taxes and duties is more than interest payment. This is the first time that I have seen that interest payment is second highest figure. Earlier, interest payment always used to be the highest figure in the government expenditure. This year, interest payment, state share of taxes and duties is more than interest payment. Looking at the expenditure, you can use this graph to add value to your answer. Revenue expenditure is increasing consistently. Then you can talk about effective capital expenditure. Now these two lines are of the same year. One is budgeted year, next is revised estimates, budgeted estimates and revised estimates. So actual amount is 10.5, 12.7 and 15. So effective capital expenditure is also increasing. Trends in capital expenditure, the effective capital expenditure is basically capital expenditure by Government of India and grants in aid for creation of capital assets provided by government to the states or union territories. So effective capital expenditure has also been increasing consistently from 8.4 lakh to 15 lakh crore this year. So this data can be used whenever there is a question on infrastructure development, etc. You can always draw this graph. Again, a graph can be drawn like this, where here you write 8.4 and then here you write 15, and this is how you write 2021, 2024. So effective capital expenditure has increased from 8.4 lakh crore to 15 lakh crore in 3 years. Moving forward, receipts, revenue receipts and capital receipts. So revenue receipts have increased, whereas capital receipts have been reducing consistently. This is budgeted estimates. These are the actual. So 18.1, 17.9, 16.9. So capital receipts are reducing, revenue receipts are increasing. Trends in capital expenditure. Capital expenditure is again increasing, which we have already seen. Trends in tax receipts. Gross tax receipts are almost stagnant between 11 to 12%. Sometimes it reduces, sometimes it increases. So there is no consistent pattern. But direct tax is more than indirect tax consistently, and the gap between direct and indirect tax has also increased. Earlier it was around 1%, now it is around 2%, that is 1.6% here and 1.8% here. So the gap between direct and indirect tax has increased. Direct taxes today more than indirect taxes. So this shows a positive trend. Direct tax should be more than indirect tax, because indirect tax is paid equally by everyone, whereas direct tax is paid only by people who are earning money. So what are the achievements in taxation reforms that the government has talked about in this year's budget? In the direct tax collections has more than trebled in the past 10 years. So in past 10 years, direct tax collection has tripled. Number of return filers swelled to 2.4 times. Return filers have increased by 2.4 times, and reduction in average processing time of returns from 93 days to just 10 days in 23-24. So the average processing time of return has reduced from about 3 months to 10 days in the past 10 years. So these are the achievements of the tax reforms that have been taken by the government of India. What are the achievements in indirect tax reforms? First is average monthly gross GST collection doubled to 1.66 lakh crore in financial year 24. Increase in tax buoyancy of state revenue from 0.72 to 1.22. Reduction in logistics cost and price of most goods and services. Decline in import. So logistics cost, it was announced recently. It was there was a article in newspaper which talked about India's logistics cost being around 8 to 9%, that is comparable to United States of America. So that is a significant achievement of indirect taxation, that goods and services tax has helped in reducing logistics cost in India. Decline in import release time since 2019. So import release time is very low in India, and import release time is one of the lowest in the world. So that is another initiatives by the government of India that has been taken in indirect tax regimes, the customs duty department. So these are the initiatives which has helped in achievement in various taxation reforms. Now this again is a trend. You do not need to know any of these figures. You can just remember one or two here. That is 4.9% and 1.8%. That is more than enough. We will have this fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit, and primary deficit. Fiscal deficit is 4.9% for the 24-25. Revenue deficit is 1.8%, and primary deficit is 1.4%. Effective revenue deficit is 0.6%. You do not again need to memorize all these figures, but just look at the trend that from 2020-21 to these have been reducing consistently. These have been reducing consistently. So you can again draw a graph. If there is a question upon fiscal consolidation or fiscal policy of the government of India, you can at least write two of these. At least one can be written here. You should memorize two of these. Memorize that the fiscal deficit in the year 2021 was 9.2%. From that, it has reduced to 4.9%, and the revenue deficit was 7.3%. From there, it has reduced to 1.8%. And you again draw a graph similar to what I have shown you, that this is the reduction which has happened in fiscal deficit and revenue deficit. This shows fiscal consolidation being done by government of India post-COVID period. Now, gender budgeting. There was a question on gender budget, and this year also the government has talked about gender budget. So we will read something about gender budget. What do we mean by gender budget, and what is the news regarding gender budget? Gender budget is basically, this is a definition given by Ministry of Women, that gender budgeting is a tool. So the Ministry of Women has talked about gender budgeting, has defined gender budgeting as a tool to achieve gender mainstream. This has been defined by Ministry of Women as a tool to achieve gender mainstreaming. What do we mean by mainstreaming? Mainstreaming basically means that benefits of development reach to women as much as men. Whatever development is happening in the nation, is happening in the economy, is happening in the country, the benefits should be reaped equally by men and women. And that is what gender mainstreaming means. So here the Ministry of Women has said that gender budgeting is a tool to achieve gender mainstreaming and the benefits of development reach to both men and women equally. So this year, the share of gender budget has increased from 5% to 6.5% of the budget. So last year, the gender budget was 5% of the total budget. This year, it is 6.5% of the total budget. The government published a gender budget statement every year along with union budget. So along with union budget, the government also publishes a gender budget statement. So what are the issues that are there in the gender budget? First is low allocation itself, as the women, are 49% despite 49% share in employment. The share in, the share of gender budget in the complete budget is around 4 to 6%. This year it is 6.5%. Concentrated in 5 key ministries. There are only 4 or 5 ministries which focus upon gender budgeting, and majority of it is around MG Narega. So 90% of the gender budget is concentrated in 5 ministries. Rest of the ministries, the gender budget is almost negligible. Lack of dedicated human resources for gender budgeting to implement interventions identified gender budgeting. So for gender budgeting, whatever the whatever the interventions that have been identified, to implement those, there is a lack of dedicated human resources, and outcome is not measured. Whatever the initiatives government says that we are going to do this year for gender budgeting, actually what are the outcomes of those initiatives is not being measured. No mechanism to measure impact of the allocation that have been made under gender budgeting. So what should be done? First should be applying a gender lens to budget. So this has been said by Ministry of Women that it is not necessary to identify or allocate money specifically to the women, but it is necessary to identify whatever money you are allocating that should benefit equally men and women. So that is basically use of gender lens to the budget. That instead of making exclusive schemes only for gender perspective, to give government schemes, gender perspective should be used to government schemes should be included uniformly. So here the ministry is saying that money need not be allocated for women specifically, but whatever money is allocated should be used for women and men equally and benefit men and women equally. Track gender disaggregated data. So data should be, whoever are the beneficiaries of a particular scheme, the gender disaggregated data should also be analyzed to know that, actually the women are benefiting from these schemes or not. Decentralization should also be, done for empowering officials at district level and panchayat level who deal with ground reality on day-to-day basis. Off-budget borrowing was in news in the last year's budget, where the government of India said that off-budget borrowings have been reduced to zero. So what is off-budget borrowings? Off-budget borrowings are basically debts taken by state-run agencies. So state-run agencies take debts to finance government programs. So this is done to bypass the FRBM Act, and they do not form part of the official budget. So off-budget borrowings do not form part of the official budget because these are taken for the purpose of not showing the fiscal deficit. The government will say that fiscal deficit is very low because the government is not taking any loan from the market, but government is using its own state-run enterprises to take loan from the market to finance the government schemes and government programs. So that is called as off-budget borrowings. They do not form part of the official budget. It bypasses the FRBM condition, and center has said that it has reduced off-budget borrowings to zero. What are the examples of off-budget borrowings? For example, public sector enterprises, special purpose vehicles, or public sector banks use their fund to finance government programs or government schemes. So this is off-budget borrowing. With this, we conclude our session of budget. Now, just a 2 minutes break, then we will start economic survey. directly from the budget itself. But economic survey is not as important in PSC question. Direct questions have not been framed much from the budget itself, economic survey itself. But economic survey is used as value addition or in framing answers in the examination. So economic survey can become important from that perspective, and there can be questions framed around certain aspects which have been talked about in economic survey. For example, in 2021, there was a question on V-shape recovery or K-shape recovery of Indian economy. So that was talked about in economic survey. So if there is something very important which has been talked about in economic survey, then question can be asked around it. Otherwise, economic survey mostly forms part of value addition in your answer writing. So we will also study economic survey from that perspective. So the first is state of Indian economy. So what is the state of Indian economy? This part of this economic survey, the first part, that is state of Indian economy, will become base of your GS3 introduction. In most of the GS3 introduction answers, you either talk about what is, if there is a question on manufacturing sector, if there is a question on infrastructure, there is a question on agriculture, there is a question on general economy or employment, there is a question on inflation, there can be a question on any of these topics. And if there is a question, then you use these data given here in the economic survey as introduction. A database introduction is a good introduction in GS3, especially in the economy and the agriculture sections. I have used it and I got good marks in GS3. So I think this can be used. I have seen a lot of toppers using it, because it becomes very difficult to define certain things. For example, if there is a question on employment, you do not define employment. You just start with that unemployment rate in India is this much %, or employment has increased to this much, or economic survey has said that this much employment is required in India. This is how you start your introduction. We do not define much, many things in economy. If there are certain things, for example, inclusive growth is asked, then you obviously have to define inclusive growth. What is inclusive growth? If gender budgeting is asked, then you have to define what is gender budgeting. If off-budget borrowing is asked, then you have to define off-budget borrowings. But most of the things in GS3, specifically in the economy and agriculture sections, you do not need to define them. But if you have data related to them, then it becomes very easy to write a good introduction in less than 10 or 15 words. So this part will become that base which will help you in introducing answers. So real GDP growth in this year was 8.2%, surpassing 8% mark in 3 out of the 4 quarters last year. GDP growth has been 8.2%. Again, this graph can be used in showing the resilient Indian economy, or the resurgence of Indian economy after the COVID-19. So during the COVID-19 year, that is in the financial year 2021, the Indian economy contracted by 5.8%, which increased to 9.5, 7.5, and currently it is 8.2%. So again, you do not have to memorize all of this. You use just two data here, minus 5.8% to 8.2%. Then you draw this small graph right after the introduction on right side of your copy. You draw a small graph that Indian economy has recovered from minus 5.8% to plus 8.2% in the 3 years. So this is how Indian economy has grown, and this shows resilience of Indian economy post COVID-19. And the real GDP growth this year is projected to be around 6.5% to 7% in this financial year, that is financial year 24-25. So what the economic survey has also talked about, the resilient domestic economy. This was the heading, a resilient domestic economy. Indian economy is a resilient domestic economy. So gross value added, GDP grew by 8.2%, gross value added grew by 7.2% in the financial year 24. Retail inflation reduced from 6.7% last year to 5.4%. So retail inflation is again in the bracket of 2 to 4%. That is the target of the Reserve Bank of India. Current account deficit has reduced to 0.7%. So current account deficit has always been a pain point for India, which is also now is being controlled from 2% to 0.7%. So this again shows resurgence or resilience of Indian economy. 55% tax accrued from the direct taxes. whereas indirect taxes have been 45%. So this is a good thing. If direct taxes are contributing more to the the tax revenue of the government of India, this shows tax buoyancy of the direct taxes. That means which are also paying the taxes. Tax is not being collected on just on the sale or consumption. Government has been able to ensure free food grain to 81.4 crore people. Now the government has the funds, has the wherewithals, not only to develop infrastructure, but also to provide free food to 81.4 crore people. That is more population than third highest, third largest country in the world. Only two countries have more population than 81 crore, that is India and China. There's no other country has even the population 81 crore. And India is feeding 81.4 crore people free of cost. So this is the resilience of Indian economy. India can take care not only of its development needs, but also of its poor, and it can feed them without any cost. Gross NPAs ratio declining to 2.8% in March 2024, a 12-year low. So NPAs have also reduced to 2.8%. So this shows, the first thing talk about the growth of Indian economy, and then inflation talks about the macroeconomic indicator. Current account deficit talks about the export and import, the external sectors of economy, and 55%, 45% talk about the fiscal part of Indian economy. Gross NPA talks about the financial sector of Indian economy. So everything looks strong as far as Indian economy is concerned, and that is why it is said that Indian economy is a resilient economy. Issues with Indian economy, what are the issues? The economic survey has not termed these as issues, but we have to look at these figures as issues only. Whereas the agriculture growth rate was very low this year. It was just 1.4%, and reduction in food grain output by 0.3%. This is the first time in many years that food grain output has actually reduced. Food grain output always used to increase regardless of the growth rate, whether it is 4%, 3%, 2%, but food grain output always used to increase. This year, food grain output actually reduced by 0.3%. So this has happened in many years. So slow growth rate of agriculture, whereas the service sector has grown by 9.5%. Agriculture grew by just 1.4%. Service sector grew by 9.5%. So this shows the divergence, the increasing inequality in India in the agriculture sector, which employs around 46%, with respect to a service sector, which employs around only 30% of the population. So public finances are improving in India. What do you mean by public finances? Public finances mean the finances of the government of India. So this is improving fiscal consolidation by reducing fiscal deficit. We have seen that fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, primary deficit, everything is on the reduction trajectory. So this is a very model graph. This is a very good graph which can actually be drawn in the examination. You do not need to draw all these three lines, but just any one or two of them. One is more than enough. If you can just draw fiscal deficit line showing 9.2%, 5.6%, and this year's 4.8%, and showing it different knots here, there. You do not have to be accurate with the knots. You just have to show them to be declining, and finally arriving this year, that is financial year 24-25. After this year, that is given in this budget, you arrive at 4.8%, and then you show that how the fiscal deficit has reduced from 9.2% to 4.8% throughout, consistently reducing throughout these 4 years. So this is a model graph which can be used in your answer writing to add value to your answer. Now, 14% increase in revenue receipts of both tax revenue as well as non-tax revenue. We have talked about it. What are the revenue receipts? Revenue receipts are recurring income of government of India, which do not affect assets and liabilities of the government of India, and which are short-term in nature. So revenue receipts, have increased by 14.5%, where tax as well as non-tax revenue. Tax revenue is GST, indirect tax, direct tax. Non-tax revenue means dividend, profit, etc., interest on loan. So both of them have increased. Gross tax revenue grew by 13.4%. So out of which tax revenue has grown by 13.4%, in which direct as well as indirect taxes have grown. Direct taxes have grown by 15.8%, that is around 16%. and indirect taxes have grown by 10.6%. It shows that direct taxes have grown more than indirect taxes, as we also saw that there was a divergence in direct tax and indirect taxes. National monetization pipeline received rupees 3.9 lakh crore in financial year 22-24, and it targeting at 6 lakh crore by the year 2025. So this is again improving public finances, that the government of India started the national monetization pipeline, where they are monetizing the assets of the central government, and government was able to monetize 3.9 lakh crore. So that money that the government of India got was used in different development projects, and the government has a target of 6 lakh crore by the financial year 25, that is this financial year. The government reduced total expenditure of to 15% of GDP from 17.7% in the financial year 21. So the government has reduced the total expenditure. Now we talk about the balance of payment, that is the India's relation with other economies, import and export, etc. So service exports have increased to USD 34.341 billion, 0.15% growth in exports, merchandise and services. So the exports combined of merchandise and services have not grown much. They have remained almost stagnant, but service exports have increased to $341 billion, and total imports declined by 4.9% despite a strong domestic market demand. So domestic market demand was very strong still. The imports reduced and exports grew. As a result, the current account deficit reduced from 2% to 0.7%. So remittances increased, exports increased just by 0.15%, but they increased, whereas imports reduced, and as a result, current account deficit reduced from 2% to 0.7%. Financial year 24 also saw stable exchange rate of Indian and US dollar. Forex reserve covering 11 months of imports are available with Reserve Bank of India. So import cover of 11 months is available with Reserve Bank of India. And external debt is currently 18.7% of GDP, which is manageable. Government tries to keep it under 20%. So 18.7% is a good enough figure. For employment, reduction in unemployment rate was seen, as well as rising in labor force participation was seen. Female labor force participation whereas increased from 23% in 17-18 to 37% in 2022-23. So we have seen the unemployment rate, the green line, have been reducing. It was 6% in the financial year 2017-18. It was 6.5%, and from 6.5% it has reduced to 3.2%. From around 6% it has reduced to, so you just need to memorize two figures here, 6% to 3.2%. So in the 5 years or 6 years, in 5 years, the unemployment rate has almost halved. This is a good thing. At the same time, labor force participation rate is increasing. Labor force participation rate was around 50%, is more than 60% currently here. It is more than 60%. Female labor force participation rate specifically has increased from 23% in 17-18, 37% in 22-23. Reducing inequality, the different data was provided in the economic survey, which talks about how the inequality has reduced. So reducing urban-rural inequality was seen in the economic survey, where the urban-rural inequality was almost 88%. It was almost 88%. That is, urban income was around urban consumption. Sorry. So urban consumption expenditure was around 88% higher than the rural consumption expenditure, which is now 71% higher than the rural consumption expenditure. So this shows that rural consumption is growing at a faster pace compared to the urban consumption. So this again shows that the inequality between rural and urban areas is reducing. Population that is multidimensional poverty. So headcount ratio in multidimensionally poor, that is multidimensional poverty index, as per the Niti Aayog paper, has reduced from around 25% in 15-16 to around 11% in 22-23. So headcount ratio in the multidimensional poverty. So people who are multidimensionally poor, multidimensional poverty captures health, education, and living standard of the people. This shows that there has been improvement in living standards, in health and education of the people. As a result, around 13%, around 14% of India's population has come out of multidimensional poverty in the past 8 years. Chapter 2, monetary management and financial intermediation. Now this is the next chapter. There are 13 chapters here. So chapter 2 talks about monetary management and financial intermediation. RBI maintained a steady policy repo rate at 6.5% throughout the financial year 2024. So RBI has maintained the repo rate at 6.5%. Core inflation declined by around 4% from 2022 to 2024. That is from 8% to around 4%. So core inflation has reduced by around 4%. Credit dispersal by scheduled commercial banks, SCB is scheduled commercial banks, growing by 20% by March 2024. Gross NPA ratio declining to 2.8% in March 2024. So gross NPAs have reduced to 2.8% in March 2024. So, and insolvency and bankruptcy court has been an effective solution to the twin balance sheet problems, where 13 lakh crores have been disposed of, value of rupees 13, the corporate debtors with value of rupees 13 lakh crore have been disposed of in 8 years. India is poised to become one of the fastest growing insurance market in the world, and is aimed to provide insurance for all by the year 2047. And India is saying that it is the second largest microfinance sector globally. India is second largest microfinance sector globally. So in the monetary management and financial intermediation, that is in the financial industry, how India is performing. First of all, you can talk about the reduction in core inflation. You can talk about the credit dispersal by scheduled commercial banks increased by 20% in the financial year 24. That is in just 1 year. The credit dispersal is increased by 20%. Gross NPA have declined to 2.8%. IBC has helped in resolving a lot of insolvencies. And India has become the fastest growing insurance market, providing insurance to all by 2047, and second largest microfinance globally. So these are major, major achievements or major aspects of the financial industry in India. When we move forward to declining gross NPA, again, you do not have to memorize every figure here. You just memorize. In March 2018, gross NPA was 11.2%. In March 2024, it is 2.8%. Draw a diagram where right here and here, 11.2%, here 2.8%, 2018, 2024, and you put it in a box. Just this will add value to your answer. That gross NPAs have been reducing, and the students knows how much exactly this has reduced from where to where. Then CRAR, capital to risk weighted assets ratio, well above the required norms. Capital to risk weighted assets ratio is around 17% from past 3 years, whereas the required norms is around 11.2%, 11.5%. So the capital adequacy ratio is actually required is 11.5%, whereas it has been more than 11.5% since March 2015, and it is much above the required norms currently. Sectoral credit growth, if we talk about sectoral credit growth in the agriculture sector, Kisan credit card, over 7.4 crore Kisan credit card accounts for operational by the end 2023. So this shows that the farmers are taking low cost loan from the government of India. Credit agriculture and allied sector grew by 20% year over year in March 2024. So this figure is same for the credit disposal by scheduled commercial banks as well as credit provided to agriculture and allied sector. This shows that growth is equally distributed in the agriculture sector and rest of the country. So agriculture sector credit dispersal has grown by 20%. Industrial credit growth has increased by 8.5% this year from 5.2% a year ago. Open credit enabled network, OCEN, Open Credit Enablement Network, expected to further boost MSME credit flow. So this is the new initiative, OCEN, Open Credit Enablement Network, which will help in further boost MSME credit flow, enhancing the flow of bank credit to MSME through formalization. So MSME formalization MSME formalization is being done by trades introduction. So trades are introduced, whereas 98.9 lakh, that is 99 lakh invoices totaling rupees 2.9 lakh crore, that is around 3 lakh crore, discounted by March 31, 2024. So around 3 lakh crores have been discounted by the banks, using the trade systems. So trades introduction has helped MSME in the formalization and getting into the formal economy. Change in the MSME definition based on turnover and investment has helped facilitate credit flow to the industry and simplify the MSME definition. Udyam Register Portal, URP, over 4.5 crore enterprises have been registered under Udyam Registration Portal. So this again also helps in formalization of the MSMEs. Revamping of the credit guarantee scheme. So we have already talked about the credit guarantee schemes for MSME in manufacturing sector. This was we have talked about in the MSME sector. Here again, revamping of the credit guarantee schemes have happened. That the credit limit of the the credit guarantee schemes have increased from 2 crore to 5 crore. The credit limit under the credit guarantee schemes to the MSME have increased from 2 crore to 5 crore. Approved guarantee worth 2.2 lakh crore, out of which this much amount was for women, 32,000 for women, and around 5,000 crore were for SC/ST owned enterprises. So this shows that money is being disbursed to SC/ST women also in the MSME sector. So development of MSME sector helps in inclusive growth of the nation because it helps women and SC and ST also. So credit limit for MSME has increased in the revamping of the credit guarantee scheme. Progress of financial inclusion in India. If you talk about progress on financial inclusion, again, financial inclusion question has been asked many times by UPSC. So this again can be drawn in what are the achievements, what are the progress that has happened in the financial inclusion. Now there are around 6 points here, and these points can be used as value addition in any of your answer. 78% account ownership in 2021. So account ownership was 78% in 2021. 24.6 ATMs per lakh adults in 2022. So per lakh 24.6 ATMs were there in 2022. More than 5.5% population have credit card. 14.3 commercial banks per lakh adults. So for per lakh adults there are 14.3 commercial banks and 1.3 bank branches. More than 1.3 lakh bank branches have been opened. 52.6 crore bank accounts have been opened under Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, out of which 56% are women. So here, the progress of the financial inclusion, you do not have to memorize again all the 6 points. You can talk about, around 25 lakh ATMs are there. You do not have to be exact here. You can talk about around 25 lakh ATMs are there. 25 ATMs are there per lakh adults. You can talk about 1.3 lakh bank branches existing in country, and you can talk about around 53 crore bank accounts under the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. India's digital public infrastructure churning the wheel of economy. Again, the government has given certain points here. These are the digital public infrastructure which helps in economic development, economic growth of the nation. So common service centers, there are more than 5.7 lakh common service centers functional in the country. Around 6.5 lakh are the number of villages in the country. So this is still not 100% coverages, but majority of the villages have been covered under the common service centers. 116.7 crore mobile subscribers exist in the country. So that is around 80% of the population of the nation has now mobile subscription. Umang service app has around 1984 e-services. That is around 2000 e-services are there in the Umang service app. Volume of UPI transaction in the financial year 24 has increased to 13,000 crore rupees value, 13,000 crore value, 1.200 lakh crore. 140 crore Aadhaar card generated, that is almost the whole population. We have 141 crore population. So 140 crore Aadhaar cards generated, around 30 crore users on DigiLocker. DigiLockers has around 30 crore users, and network infrastructure, 35.5 kilometer optical fiber cable land every day has been laid. So this is digital public infrastructure. In digital public infrastructure, now there is a lot of confusion among aspirants. What do you mean by digital public infrastructure, and what is there in the digital public infrastructure? So whenever you think about digital public infrastructure, think about common service center, think about Aadhaar, think about mobiles, and think about UPI, think about network infrastructure, for example, optical fibers, think about DigiLocker, etc. So all these government apps, which are provided to you for better services that the government is providing, you can use the term digital public infrastructure. Now IFSC has emerged a dominant gateway for global capital flow in the country. So GIFT IFSC, International Financial Services Center, has emerged as a major center. This is there in the Nagar International Financial Services Center. So this again, GIFT is the name of the city. GIFT is the name of the city. IFSC is the center. That is International Financial Services Center. This has emerged as a dominant gateway for capital inflow in India. What are the unique factors which has helped in making it in the attracting foreign investment in the country? First is it gets non-resident zone. That is IFSC is special economic zone. This GIFT city is in special economic zone. So this is a non-resident zone, special economic zone, which is exempted from capital control restrictions and allowing transactions to 11 foreign currencies. So capital control restrictions do not exist there. So as a result, more free flow of capital can happen there. Unified regulations oversight by the International Financial Services Center Authority. So there is a authority established, IFSCA. This is IFSC, this is IFSCA, which ensures that there is unified regulation of the IFSCs. Separate tax regime exists for the IFSC. As a result, they can have competitive taxation. As a result, they can have competitive taxation. So the competitive taxation allows international companies to come and invest in the IFSC, and as a result, they get benefit of lower tax rates, and we get the benefit of investment from the foreign investors. So separate tax regime exists for the IFSC, which is different from the nation. Chapter 3 is prices and inflation. So in the prices and inflation, we will look at the certain graphs. For example, retail inflation has reduced to 4.3%. Retail inflation, headline inflation has reduced to 5.4% this year. So this was 6.4% last year. So headline inflation, core inflation. So headline inflation, CPI, Consumer Price Index, has reduced from 6.4% to 5.4%. Again, instead of drawing this line, it's better if you draw the bar chart and show how the retail inflation or Consumer Price Index has reduced. And high food inflation at the rate of 7.5%. Food inflation is very high. There are several reasons which have been identified by the economic survey. Due to excessive heat and uneven rainfall, the food inflation is high. Russia-Ukraine war, high international prices. So due to, first in India, there were two climate-related reasons were identified. One is the uneven rainfall. One is and the other is excessive heat, which was seen in the last year. And Russia-Ukraine war, high international prices. Russia-Ukraine war, because of which the supply shocks have happened and high international prices, has resulted into the high food inflation in the country. Benign core inflation at 4.3%. We have seen the core inflation is 4.3%. And major reason is attributed to RBI steps. RBI has increased the repo rate to 6.5%, and as a result, core inflation came down to 4.3%. What are the future projections related to the inflation in country? RBI forecasted inflation to be 4.5% this year and 4.1% in the next year, that is financial year 25-26. So this year, RBI has said that the inflation will be 4.5%, which is a pretty good figure. Food inflation. So how the food inflation was seen in different food items. First, tomato and onion, where the prices surged due to poor weather, crop diseases, logistics supports impacting their production. So here, the onion and tomato and onion, the food prices increased due to poor weather and crop diseases. You can talk about these two reasons. The tomato and onion prices increased due to poor weather and crop diseases, due to which production reduced. Pulses, especially tur and urad, the rose due to low production from adverse weather and slower sowing in the Rabi season. So in Rabi season, the sowing was slow because of the adverse weather. As a result, the pulses, especially tur and urad, the production was also low. In milk, the production was low due to reduced artificial insemination. Reduced artificial insemination during the period of pandemic. The artificial insemination reduced the, the medical experts were not, going into the market and doing the artificial insemination. So reduce artificial insemination and higher animal feed cost. Animal feed cost, increased in the financial year 22. As a result, the milk production in India also, or the cost of milk in India increased. The government ensured food security to open market sales. So how the government ensures, despite all these problems, the increase in prices of tomato and onion, increase in prices of pulses, increase in prices of milk, how did the government ensure food security in the nation? So the government ensures food security through open market sales. So the open market sales are done by the government of India and timely imports and the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, where the governments provide 5 kg of free grain to 81 crore beneficiaries for 5 years from January 2014. So these are the 3 steps. One is open market sales, second is timely import, and third is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, which provide free food grains to 81 crore people for the next 5 years. So these 3 initiatives were taken to ensure food security even at the time of high food inflation. So we have looked at the data, what was the food inflation figure. We have looked at the reasons, what were the reasons behind food inflation. We have different examples, tomato, onion, pulses and milk. And we have also looked at what were the government steps taken to control food inflation, to secure food security during the time of food inflation. So what were the administrative measures to contain food inflation in financial year 24? First is for wheat and atta. For wheat, the steps taken by government of India. The first is export of wheat, maida and semolina was placed under prohibited category. So export of wheat was placed under prohibited category. You do not have to write everything. You just write export of wheat flour was put under prohibited category. That's it. You do not actually have to write the when it happened, why it happened, and everything is not to be written in the answer. Answer has to be short and crisp. So you write about what are the administrative measures which have been taken. Control food inflation in India. We talked about 3 steps. Now there are several other steps. Wheat and atta. For wheat, you just write here wheat, and there is an arrow. Export of wheat flour put under prohibited category. That's it. That is more than enough. Bharat Atta at a subsidized price of 27.5 kg was provided. So Bharat Atta, new brand developed, where the government of India, open market sales, the government of India released its stocks, and a subsidized price of 27.5 per kg was provided in the name of Bharat Atta. Then we talk about rice. What was done to control the prices of rice. Export of broken rice and non-basmati white rice was put under prohibited category. After that, 20% export duty was put on parboiled rice. So for broken rice and for non-basmati white rice, the export was put in the prohibited category, and the export duty was increased to 20% on the parboiled rice. So this is how we reduce the export of rice, and the price of rices in India reduced. For pulses, what were the steps taken? Calibrated increase of stocks from the buffer. So buffer was used to increase, the supply in the market. Bharat Dal, again, we have seen Bharat Atta here. Bharat Dal to convert chana stocks into chana dal. So chana stocks was converted into chana dal and supplied in the market. For onion, what was the initiative taken? Onion buffer size for under PSF was increased from 1 LMT to 7 LMT. So onion ka buffer size was increased, and place a minimum export price on a specific varieties of onion to ensure that minimum export price is ensured for the farmers. Minimum export price on specific varieties of onion was placed, below which you cannot sell in the international market. So these were the steps which have been administrative steps taken to control food inflation in the nation. So what are the further measures which can be taken to curb import, to control food inflation in the country? First is to reduce import dependence. How to reduce import dependence? We can boost domestic edible oil production by focusing on food, sunflower and rapeseed. and exploring non-conventional oil. So this is basically a way forward how to control food inflation in future. First is to reduce dependence. So to reduce import dependence, we need to increase production of, for example, edible oil, focusing on sunflower and rapeseed. National mission on edible oils again should include other major oil seeds also. This should not just focus upon the major focus of national mission on edible oil has been on palm oil. So national mission on edible oil, palm oil should be expanded to the northeastern and the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Expenditure cultivation of pulses. So expanding cultivation of pulses should be done to more areas. Promoting summer crops is essential. So pulses cultivation is shrinking nowadays. So expanding of the pulses cultivation to more areas should be done to increase production of pulses. Modern storage facility development should be done to address seasonal vegetable price surges. Now here the Shanta Kumar committee has talked about silos. There is a committee here, Shanta Kumar committee. It was not there in the economic survey. I am just writing it. Shanta Kumar committee has talked about development of silos. So instead of using a pith and blank method, silos should be developed. A modern storage facility should be developed to address seasonal vegetable prices surges. Think high frequency data. So integration of monitoring of essential food items to track prices. So prices should be tracked to ensure that the prices are not going very up and down in the market. Accelerated producer price index construction. So producer price index construction should be done in the especially in the agriculture sector. So we have the better understanding of cost push inflation. If producer price index is available, then we know when the prices in the mandi prices are increasing, when the farm gate prices are increasing, we would know it, and we would know that whether this inflation is cost push inflation or demand pull inflation. So if the producer price index moves up, then as a result, we will know that this is the cost push inflation. So currently producer price index is not measured in India, not calculated in India. So this should be done at a speedy way. And updating consumer price index. Consumer price index currently has 45% weightage of food and beverages. Consumer price index has 45% weightage of food and beverages. So this need to be updated because 45% of our expenditure does not go into food and beverages. Food and beverages are not the major expenditure that is even of the poor people. So food and beverages is not 45% of the consumption basket, but as per the consumer price index, the food and beverages have 45% weightage. And even the chief economic advisor has said that due to over-representation of food and beverages in the consumer price index, the food inflation affects the consumer price index, and due to high food inflation, the overall inflation also looks very high. So this needs to be updated and revised consumer price index, updated weights and items baskets, household consumer price expenditure survey. Next comes the fourth chapter, that is external sector. Exports, India service exports grew by 4.9%. So services exports have grew by 4.9%. This we have already talked about, to $341 billion in the financial year. Special contribution from IT, software and business services. Remittances, India is the largest remittance receiver with $120 billion. So $120 billion, India is the largest remittance receivers. External debt, India's external debt to GDP ratio stood at 18.7% as of March 2024. Logistics performance, India's rank in World Logistics Index has improved to 38th in the year 2023. So from 44 around 10 years ago, now we have 38th rank in the logistics World Bank Logistics Index. Tourism, India's share world tourism receipts increased from 1.38% to 1.58% in 2022 compared to 2021. So in external sector, when we talk about exports of services have increased, remittances have increased, external debt is under control. Logistics performance, India's logistics performance has increased. As a result, the cost of production in India reduce and exports can increase. Tourism is also a form of service export. So tourism is also increasing. As a result, the India received 1.58% tourists in India in 2022 compared to 1.38 in 2021. In external sector, if we talk about India's share in the global service exports and India's share in global merchandise exports, so here India's share in global merchandise exports has been around 1.7% to 1.8%. So this has not changed much. Whereas India's share in global service exports has increased from around 3.3% to 4.3%. So India's share in global service exports has increased substantially, whereas India's share in global goods export has remained, merchandise exports has remained stagnant at around 1.7% and 1.8%. India's overall trade performance in the last 10 years, you see imports have always been more than exports. Imports have never been less than exports. Imports have always been more than exports. So that is why we have always been a trade deficit nation. Trends in India's exports and imports of toys. Now this industry, there can be a question specifically on toy industry. So you should be prepared with it. Toy industry, the Prime Minister has also talked about toy industry a lot. And India was a net importer of toys till the financial year 2020, that is 2019-20. India was a net importer of toy, and now India has become a net exporter of toy. So toy industry has seen quite a turnaround in India. So you can expect a question on toy industry specifically. Defense exports have increased from 0.2 billion USD dollar, 2.5 billion USD dollar. That is 12 times increment in the past 7 years in the defense exports. External sector, if you talk about remittance receipts, we have already said that India is largest recipient of remittances with 120 billion US dollars. And this is much more than, almost doubles of the second highest, that is Mexico, and more than doubles than that of China. These two combined also do not reach India's level, that is 120 billion US dollars. Now China plus one strategy has again been talked about in the economic survey, but with a different angle. China plus one strategy is basically when the companies are shifting away from China. When China plus one strategy is when companies, after having their manufacturing capacity in the China, they also want to have another manufacturing capacity in other country, so that whenever there is a issue between China in Europe and China in Australia, or China and USA, their business is not affected as much. Their business does not depend upon the international relations of China. So there are various reasons because of which China's international relation with other countries is affected, and that should not affect the business of the manufacturer. So they adopt a China plus one strategy, where they will have one factory in China and one more factory in any other country. For example, it can be Bangladesh, India, Vietnam, or Nigeria, Brazil, any country it can be. So this was seen. There is a shift from China. Major firms including Apple are diversifying away from China due to restrictions which were put in China in the COVID-19, US-China tension, etc., rising costs. So there are several reasons for China plus one. First one is the COVID-19 restrictions which were very stringent in China, US-China tension, again the trade war between US and China, and rising cost. The rising labor cost in China is also affecting the production cost in China, and as a result the companies are moving away from China. Over 90% of North American manufacturers moved some production to countries like Mexico, Thailand, and Vietnam, as per the survey done in USA. So countries are shifting away from China. And what is the India's potential? India is a large market, and government's PLI scheme attract firms like Apple and Foxconn. For example, you can give example of Apple, which assembled $14 billion worth of iPhones in India in financial year 24. So $14 billion worth of iPhones were assembled in India in the financial year 24. So it shows there is a shift from China to other countries. For example, Apple shifted from China to India. Increase in exports, it is also seen. Yes, exports, electronic exports to USA surged from USD $0.6 billion deficit in financial year 2017 to USD $8.7 billion surplus in financial year 24. So this can also be seen that effect of the China plus one strategy. Challenges and opportunities. What are the challenges and opportunities available? The problem between China plus one strategy is that balancing between integration into China's supply chain and promoting Chinese FDI is crucial to boost exports and manage growing trade deficit with China. India has a huge trade deficit with China. How to reduce that trade deficit? There are two ways. One is to use that trade deficit to increase exports of India. We import raw material from China, we can process them and we can export in the market. And as a result, we can increase our exports and still be dependent upon China for the raw material, but earning huge amount of money from exporting of finished goods. Other way is to bring the manufacturers of China into India so they can develop those machines. For example, we import chips, the chips from China, and use those chips in assembling the phone and selling in the USA. Otherwise, we can attract the foreign investors of China, the Chinese investors into India, to manufacturing chips in India itself. That will be cheaper for Chinese investors and that will provide jobs to the Indian. So chip manufacturing can be done in India itself, then assembly can be done in India itself, and that can be exported to USA. So this possibility is being talked about in this particular economic survey, where they are talking about attracting the Chinese investors in India, and that has to be balanced with integration of Indian economy with the Chinese economy. So FDI versus trade is a conundrum, is an issue that is being talked about in this particular economic survey. FDI from China could be more beneficial from trade. Countries like Brazil and Turkey are attracting Chinese FDI in sectoralized electric vehicle by restricting imports. So they put restrictions on imports from China, but they allow FDI into their countries. So similar strategy is being mulled over or talked about in Indian economic survey, where imports from China will be restricted, but investment from China will be allowed. So what are the challenges which are there in the external sector? First is fall in demand from major trading partners. It was seen that in recent years, India's major trading partners, for example, USA, there was a decline in imports of 1.7%. Rising protectionism in the world could be undermined due to trade recovery in the 24-25. So protectionism is rising in the world. Rising in trade costs are rising in the world. Shipping disruptions due to attacks in Red Sea and drought in Panama Canal, etc. As a result, the trade costs in the world are rising. Commodity price volatility. So commodity price volatility is another issue, especially for oil, metals, and agriculture products. Impacts India's trade balance and inflation. Trade policy changes in another challenge, where WTO reports that significant increase in exports. Restrictions with 75% 75 restrictions on food, feed and fertilizers, etc. So these are all the challenges in external sectors as per the economic survey. Now, how does the medium term outlook look like? Key focus areas of the medium term outlook. First is job and skill creation. India needs 78.51 lakh new jobs, new non-farm jobs annually, every year. Look at the word annually. So India need around 80 lakh jobs, non-farm jobs every year to employ new entrants in the job market. So this is a key area which needs to be focused currently in the medium term outlook, that we need to provide jobs to these people. And 15.1 to 25% of youth deemed employable currently. So around half of them are still unemployable as per India Skills Report. So India Skills Report has talked about that around 51.2% of Indian graduates are employable, whereas around 49% are still not employable. So jobs and skill creation is a major challenge, is a major key focus area of the medium term growth outlook, that is in the next 5-7 years. Tapping the full potential of the agriculture sectors, need to improve technology, price discovery, and crop productivity, etc. The full potential of the agriculture sector needs to be tapped in. Addressing MSME bottlenecks. So extensive regulation of the 20 to 25 lakh crore credit gap exists in the MSME. So MSMEs are currently facing a credit gap of 20 to 25 lakh crore rupees. So these needs to be addressed. And managing India's green transition. India needs USD 1.4 trillion for its 2070 net zero goal, requiring 2.5% of GDP annually. So India needs an investment of 1.4 trillion US dollars. 1.4 trillion US dollars need investment is required in India to achieve the net zero target of 2070. So these are the key focus areas in the medium term outlook. Again, deftly dealing with the Chinese conundrum. First is to integrate into the global supply chain without relying on the China. How can we integrate in the global supply chain if we cannot rely on the China, because China is a major player in the global trade? Other is balancing between importing goods and capital from China. How much should we import from China? How much capital should be allowed from China? Again, this is a conundrum which India is facing with respect to China. Deepening corporate bond market. India's bond market is small and lacks depth, so that needs to be deepened. Tracking inequality. India's top 1% earn around 6 to 7% of the income. So inequality is increasing in India. Improving quality of health for the youth. So unhealthy diets contribute to 56% of the diseases in the nation. So this can again be used in the social justice or society question, that unhealthy diets contributes to 56% of India's disease burden in the nation. So again, improving quality of health of the youth is a key focus area of the policy. Next chapter is climate change and energy transition. Here, renewable energy, non-fossil fuel account for around 45% of the installed electricity generation in the nation. So renewable energy has become an important source of energy for India. Energy needs are there. India energy needs are projected to grow 2 to 2.5 times by the year 2047. As a result, we need to grow energy capacity, majority of which will come from the non-fossil, but fossil fuel will also be used. Investment in clean energy. The clean energy sector attracted investment of rupees 8.5 lakh crore. So 8.5 lakh crore rupees investment was attracted in the past 9 years. And you can also talk about that to achieve the net zero target, we need $1.4 trillion investment in future. Installed power capacity. Currently, coal has the highest share of 48%, followed by solar power that is 19%, which is followed by the large hydro project, and that is followed by wind power. Now again, you do not have to memorize all of this, but you should know it is around less than 50%, around 50%. 48% is coal, 19% that is around 1/5 is solar energy, then 11 and 10% are large hydro and the wind power. If there is a question on wind power, for example, in mains 2022, there was a question on wind power. So this data was useful there. So this much share, wind power has this much share in the energy of India. Challenges of energy transition. What are the challenges? First is irregular supply by the the renewable energy. Renewable energy supply is not regular. Low LCOE due to subsidies. So levelized cost of electricity, that is the cost that we hear about, that solar power cost is very low. We hear about the tenders that these costs are very low, but this is because of the subsidy. Subsidy means that these contractors have to supply energy to the discoms, but they are not able to supply very regularly, because wind power and solar power is not an reliable source, and not an not a source which can generate energy consistently. So as a result, they have to sometimes depend upon thermal power or the hydropower, etc. So that energy is subsidized by the government of India, and as a result, the levelized cost of electricity of the renewable energy is low. So that is not the real cost that the energy producer are paying. So the levelized cost of electricity for renewable is lower than fossil fuel due to ignorance of intermittency cost. Intermittency cost is cost paid by the government to provide electricity when the renewable energy producers are not able to provide electricity in that period. Technological challenges. Key technological challenges for global net zero, such as hydrogen fuel, steel, etc., are commercially unviable. So a lot of things are unviable. Land intensity. The renewable energy is very land intensity. It's, for example, the solar energy requires around 1 to 1.5 hectares per megawatt of land. Renewable waste recycling is another challenge. Solar PV waste could reach to 78 million tons globally by 2050. Geographically concentrated critical minerals. For example, graphite 79% is in China, cobalt 70% is in DRC, rare earth minerals 60% are there in China. Lithium, again, Australia produces 55%. Majority of it still is in the lithium triangle, the South America. So the geographical concentration of critical minerals again affect the development of renewable energy throughout the world. So what does India's initiatives to address climate change in the world? First is International Solar Alliance, One Sun, One World, One Grid, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, Infrastructure for Resilient Island States. These are the various initiatives which have been taken by India for address climate change issues. Next comes social sector benefits that empower. So social sector is the benefits that empower. Between 2000 financial year 18 and 24, nominal GDP has grown at a CAGR of around 9.5%. Welfare expenditure have grown at the rate of 12.8%. So nominal GDP has increased at a CAGR of 9.5%. Welfare expenditure has increased at a CAGR of 12.8%. Gini coefficient and indicator of inequality, this has actually declined from 0.288 to 2.266 in rural areas, and in urban areas 0.36 to 0.31. So this shows that the inequality in India is reducing. The Gini coefficient is an indicator of inequality. If the Gini coefficient is high, that means inequality is high. More than 34.7 crore Ayushman Bharat cards have been generated, and scheme has covered 7.34 crore hospital admissions. 22 mental health disorders are also covered under the Ayushman Bharat scheme and Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana health insurance, and Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi program for early childhood educations developed the world's largest universal high quality preschool networks and Anganwadi center. So Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi, you just remember the name of this particular program. You do not actually have to memorize what is there in the program. Vidyanjali initiative played crucial role in enhancing educational experience of our 1.44 crore students. Under Pradhan Mantri Awas Gramin, 2.60 crore houses were constructed in the last 9 years. 15 lakh crore road construction completed under Gram Sadak Yojana since 2014-15. So here what you have to remember, Poshan Bhi Padhai Bhi program focus upon childhood education, and Anganwadi centers are there. Vidyanjali initiative is there, enhancing educational experience of 1.44 crore students. Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, 2.63 crore houses, and Ram Sadak Yojana, 15 lakh kilometer road construction in the past 9 years. This is it that you have to remember. This can again be used in value addition in various answers. Employment and skill development, we have already talked about. Unemployment rate has reduced to 3.2% from around 6.5% in 7 years. 45% of workforce is employed in agriculture, 11% in manufacturing, and 28% in services, 13% in construction. Youth age between 15 to 30, unemployment rate has declined from 18% to 10% in past 5 years. Female labor force participation rate has been rising for past 6 years. It has increased from around 22% to 37% in the last year. Number of factories employing more than 100 workers, so around 12% growth. The gig workforce is expected to expand to 2.35 crore by 2930. The gig workforce is currently around 70 to 80 lakh, which is expected to grow to around 2.35 crore. Indian economy needs to generate an average of nearly 78.5 lakh. Now this we have already talked annually in the non-farm sector by the year 2030. Compared to 50 crore persons in 2022, country would need a care of 64 crore people in 2050. So that means the old age population is increasing in India. The children population is also increasing in India. As a result, the population of dependent will increase from 50 crore to 64 crore in the year 2050. Agriculture and food management, what are the initiatives under agriculture? Agriculture and allied sector has seen a growth rate of 4.18% the past 5 years. But this year, agriculture growth rate was very low, that is around 1.7%. Allied sector, as robust growth centers, promising source of improving farm incomes. Allied sector are providing more income and more growth through the agriculture sector compared to farm income. Total credit disbursement to agriculture amounted to 22.8 lakh crore. We also saw that the year-on-year growth rate in credit dispersal to agriculture and allied sector increased by 20.2%. Same as the scheduled commercial banks provided the credit growth in the scheduled commercial banks of 20% in the last 1 year. bank issued around 7.5 crore Kisan credit card, and 90 lakh hectares has been covered under micro irrigation in 8 years. So micro irrigation ke upar bhi there have been question asked by the UPSC. So this data can be used there, that 90 lakh hectares has been covered under micro irrigation in the past 8 years. Every rupee invested in agriculture research contributes to, including education, results in a payoff of rupees 13.85. That means 1 rupee results in payoff of around 14 times. If you invest 1 lakh rupee, then 14 lakh rupees worth of benefit will happen to the economy if rupee is invested in agriculture research, including education in agriculture section. So this is data related to agriculture and food management. Industry, small and medium matters. What are these industry data related to industry? Economic growth of 8.2% in financial year 24 was supported by industrial growth rate of 9.5%. Manufacturing sector achieved an average annual growth rate of 5.2% in the last decade. Manufacturing sector has grown by 5% in the past 10 years, whereas the coal production over the past 5 years has helped in reducing import dependence. Coal production has increased in the past 5 years. Pharmaceutical sectors stands as the world's third largest producer in volume, with a valuation of USD $50 billion. India is the world's second largest cloth manufacturing. We have already seen that India is the second largest microfinance industry. India is one of the largest insurance industry. India is the second largest cloth manufacturing industry, and the third largest pharmaceutical by volume. India's electronic manufacturing sectors account for estimated 3.7% of the global market share, and we have seen that the electronic manufacturing in India is increased. India has become net exporter to the USA in electronics. PLI schemes attracted over 1.28 lakh crore of investment until May 2024, generated 8.5 lakhs jobs. So about PLI scheme, you can use this data. This data is very important, that PLI scheme has generated around 8.5 lakh jobs in the nation. Next comes the services fueling growth opportunities. So services sector GVA has reached the levels which were there in before the pandemic, that is around 55%. Globally, India's service export is 4.4% of the world's commercial services exports. Computer services and business account for 73% of those exports. So computer services and business service exports are the major contributor of India's service exports. Aviation sector has grown with 15% year on year. Tourism industry witnessed over 92 lakh foreign tourist arrival in 2023, and Indian commerce industry is expected to cross USD 350 billion by 2030. Infrastructure shifting potential growth. The average pace of national highway construction increased from 3 times. In financial year 2014, the average speed of construction of national highway was 11.7 kilometers. Currently, it is 34 kilometers. Capital expenditure on railways has increased by 77% in the past 5 years. So capital expenditure on railways has increased. New terminal buildings at 21 airports have been operationalized. So we have talked about the road infrastructure, we have talked about the railway infrastructure, and the airports infrastructure buildings of 21 airports have been operationalized in the financial year 24. India's rank in international shipping category in the world's best logistics performance index has improved to 22nd. So in shipping category, our rank is 22nd. From 44th, and overall our rank is 38. The clean energy sector in India saw investment of 8.5 lakh crore between 2014 and 2023. In the past 9 years, we have received 8.4 lakh crore in the clean energy sector. So this is it for the economic survey. Again, this data is, you are not going to memorize everything in one day. Whatever you think was useful in data, just either highlight it in the document, or write it down in your own words, and just use it as last minute revision right before writing the test. If you read it 4 or 5 times, then this data will automatically start coming up in your answer, and this will add much value to your answer. Thank you very much for your patience for such a long class. I hope it was worthwhile. Thank you.